2, 1, go.
Hi, and welcome to the Technocrat Live. My guest tonight is Rocco Laudadio. I did it anyway! Laudadio.
Laudadio.
Yes, Laudadio. Rocco Laudadio.
Laudadio.
Laudadio. What is wrong with me? I did it like 5 times. Did I not do it 5 times?
You said it correctly like 10 times before the show started.
Laudadio. Okay, I got it now. Laudadio. So, again, I never said your last name before, so welcome.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on. We got some news items tonight, so I just wanted to go through them real quick. So first I wanted to send some drone thoughts and some drone prayers to the drone that crashed. I'm very sad for its drone family. So if you have any spare wisdom for drones, you know, now's the time to, I don't know, write a piece of code and that no one can see. So the big news is Facebook currency. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you?
No, I know about this.
Yeah, a drone got shot down in Iran, so I thought it was.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Facebook.
No. I was. Well, now I'm talking about Facebook, but yeah.
The drone I didn't know about.
Yeah, so there's a drone that just got shot down in Iran, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, we got to go to war over this." And it's like, it's a drone. That's the point of having a drone. If it gets shot down, you just let it go. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
Their whole point is to be disposable.
You know, you could go to war or not go to war. A drone is a bad reason to go to war. All right, so I got to explain the joke. So Facebook is talking about having a new currency. So I don't know if you heard about this. So they're actually talking about making a cryptocurrency, which to me, it's not even a cryptocurrency based on what I've heard so far. So they're calling it Libra. So there's a couple interesting things. It's going to be backed by other currencies, which to me is immediately a sign of trouble. Because if you have a basket of currencies that you can change with some kind of loose process, then it has no backing at all.
The way they're describing it sounds a lot like Tether. Have you ever looked at what Tether was?
No, shoot, man. What's Tether?
So Tether was this currency that was basically created for smaller exchanges to be able to bypass banks, basically.
Right.
So it's in trouble now because I think they got in trouble for money laundering. Was it money laundering? No, they got in trouble for claiming they had more money than they had, or something along those lines.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a dollar-backed currency. Every token is supposed to be backed by $1 US that they
that's
hold
right.
in reserve.
Yes, I have heard of Tether, and now I remember what it's been a while since I heard anything about it.
Yeah.
So the crypto news, if you're not a crypto user or a usual crypto person, the crypto space has really kind of gotten dark lately because the Bitcoin, all of the cryptos, not just Bitcoin, but all of the cryptos kind of took a dive. They kind of move somewhat in tandem. There are deviations. That's one of the places you can make money with carry trades, but nobody's really, there hasn't been that much news. A lot of the smaller altcoins have kind of went, or people have stopped paying attention to them, or the companies that were developing them are having financial troubles or have gone under. But and Tether was the big one that was a lot of people were accusing of manipulating the crypto markets. Actually,
yeah, Tether's not gone yet. They're still operating, as far as I'm aware.
Right. Well, if their purpose is really, it kind of feeds into the conspiracy theory, right? You know, like if a bunch of smaller company run cryptos go under and Tether doesn't on the downturns, it kind of lends itself towards.
So basically, one of the larger exchanges created Tether in like an offshoot of their company. They made Tether as like a dollar-pegged asset, so that to try to keep the value as close to $1 as possible. There's little fluctuations here, but they're only like on the order of cents, like 1 or 2 cents, and then it always gets back to zero because they always adjust to make it $1 again.
Right.
So what its purpose was there were a lot of banks that were overseas that couldn't get banking partnerships so that people could deposit money. Mm-hmm. And this other bank that had this other exchange that had banking relationships decided to create Tether as a service that they could sell for a profit to other exchanges.
Okay.
And what it is on their exchange, instead of trading US dollars for crypto, they trade Tether for crypto. And then when the people want to withdraw, they just go back to Tether and they get US dollars for the Tether.
Right. So it's just meant to be an intermediary.
It was meant to be an intermediary for smaller exchanges.
Kind of like money laundering. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. A lot like money laundering.
That's why there was so much controversy around it. But the way it's going to be backed reminds me a lot of the Facebook idea. It seems very, very similar.
Right. So the interesting thing is there wasn't really any complaining about Tether, legally speaking. Like, no one was like, oh, we got to get it. Like,
Yeah.
like the community did that, but they didn't see any bigwigs. So there actually is a bigwig, and this is what you mentioned. Like, I don't know anything about Maxine Waters. The thing that's interesting about Maxine Waters is she just said, we have to look into Facebook and maybe stop this. So the interesting part about that is whatever the legal precedent that she uses for that could create case law, which could put Tether in jeopardy. So, yeah. I don't know if someone called her and told her to shut up, but
Tether's
it'd be
already in
interesting if she
jeopardy.
continues
They
on
were
this.
caught using funds they were caught spending the funds that were supposedly held in reserve.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Okay, cool. That was, and I got a link here to that. So I actually had made a cell phone prediction a little while ago. So this was kind of cool. The cell phone, it wasn't about cell phones, it was about the chips. So I sat down and I'm like, okay, if I looked at the growth curve of cell phone chips and I just extrapolated it to the future. And I said, okay, at what point will there be more cell phone chips, significantly more cell phone chips than like x86, Intel, and AMD based chips in production, and I had it down to 2019. Well, guess what?
I was actually going to say, isn't it over already?
Yeah, we've had it where it's significantly more. I wanted it to be more. It wasn't enough for it to be the same, because if it's neck and neck, nobody wants to switch over with no cost. So sure enough, I have the Samsung Galaxy. I just got the Galaxy 10. So they had it in Galaxy 9, but I didn't hear anything about it. But now in Galaxy 10, I'm starting to see things about it. There's a desktop included in the Samsung Galaxy line called Dex, and it's actually pretty good.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
I remember their first phone that had that actually called the Desktop, I think was the name of the phone?
Right.
Or something along those. I might be completely wrong on that. It's just Dex?
The feature is just called Samsung Dex.
All right.
Right. But it's just like a Linux. It's almost like a Linux distro the way it feels. But you're running Android apps instead of whatever you would be running in whatever Linux distro.
Yeah.
And they have a full Office suite for Android now. That's it. If you have a full Office suite, all the game, not all games work because not all games know how to
So how do
deal
you
with it.
utilize it? Do you need a special dock to use it, or it just runs right on the phone? Or
So this is a USB-C to HDMI converter. Now the important thing is if you pick up one of these, you want to have this port on the side because that's a power injector port. Otherwise, the versions of these without that power injector ports will drain your battery on your phone at about 3 to 4% a minute.
What about input devices? You just use Bluetooth, I guess?
Bluetooth, right? Bluetooth headphone, I already tested it. Bluetooth headphones, keyboard, and mouse work fine. So I did have one Bluetooth mouse and keyboard that didn't work, but some of them work for sure.
Does it give you any issues pairing multiple Bluetooth devices simultaneously?
No, it wasn't even flaky. It was 100% on. It was really strange because I was playing with it and somebody called me and it just the phone app just comes up right in the middle of the screen and I'm talking to the person while I'm working on the desktop.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was very Black Mirror. I'm really into that show. Sorry, we can't do. Do you watch Black Mirror at all? Or
No, I want to though. I've heard it's very good.
Watch
I have it on my list. I haven't watched it yet.
basically, if there was a Technocrat live sci-fi show, that's Black Mirror. And if Black Mirror had a talk show, it would be Technocrat Live. So, it's just dark cynicism about near-term sci-fi. So, the only thing, there's really only like 2 technologies in the show that don't exist yet. And I think largely they're just dramatic vehicles to make the show more understandable.
Yeah.
Like all the things they're saying are still true. It's less flashy. So anyway, my prediction came true. I predicted it in Lilag. Actually, Jeff backed me up. He's like, yeah, you were totally talking about that. And a couple of message boards online and also my old job. So, I was right. So it's going to be interesting in the next couple of years. We may start seeing desktop sales trail off and people just plugging their cell phones into monitors at the endpoints, which is bizarre. But
I'm most excited about that little thing there, though, because when this phone was first released, I don't remember if it was the Samsung one or if it was the equivalent Motorola one that came out a while ago, but it offered these really expensive docks that were very overpriced. That was the only way to use it.
apparently this is a standard. So there is a standard behind this. I don't know how. It is not a patent encumbered standard, I don't think.
So that's just a standard output to HDMI.
Yeah, this is just Cable Matters or something.
Yeah, so that's not even specific to the Samsung desktop.
No. So like any phone that does that USB-C to HDMI connection, this will work on.
Because the earlier concept of these things required expensive docks that allowed you to use like VGA monitors.
I would say don't trust it. Just check, make sure you find a review where somebody confirms that it works. Do the old HDL thing, but it's pretty awesome. I'm really psyched about it. So I mean, I remember years and years ago, before anyone was using smartphones, I was using my Nokia like that as a laptop that I would just connect to, and I'd prop it up somewhere. But now I can do that, and I can connect it to whatever monitor's around. It's really, I was almost brought stuff to do a demo, and I'm like, that would suck. I'm not going to do that. It'll just blow up and catch fire.
Funny thing, that's the whole reason why Ubuntu went with Unity way back when, because they were planning to do cell phones that could be desktops and with the same UI.
And they were right. They
just gave up like a couple years too soon, I guess.
Maybe someone paid them off to stop. I don't know. It's weird. I don't get why they gave up.
Honestly, I think it's because it wasn't making money yet, and I think he's looking to sell the company.
Right. I don't know why. Ubuntu is really popular. I mean, they're really Red Hat is all business.
He's either looking to sell it or he's just looking to go public.
Before IBM bought Red Hat, even it was all business, and they're really serious, and yet Ubuntu makes inroads against them, and that just tells you that it's good. So at least for the mean of people, maybe the people on the periphery are like, Ubuntu sucks. Why are we using this? But the general users. Yeah. Unity actually. My dad was actually using Ubuntu on his home computer for like 2 versions, and actually Unity chased him off. He's like, what the hell is this crap?
I never liked it.
And he went back to Windows. So
I'm one of those guys that always hated it.
Shout out in case he's watching tonight. So let's see. What else is there? Oh, okay. So we got the Hawley bill. So I don't know if you heard about this. So it's called the Ending Support for Censorship Act. So this just hit the news like a couple days ago. And the idea is that companies that are acting as curators instead of just hosting companies are going to be legally liable and possibly fines. I'm not sure what the recipe of that is yet. I mean, it's a brand new bill, and who knows if that'll be what it is when it's actually passed. But the idea is 30 million. The bar, in case you're worried about startups being affected by this, 30 million active users in the United States, 300 million active users worldwide, and 500 million in global annual revenue.
And what does it limit them to?
It was basically, if you can't be. The idea is that the law will prevent big tech companies from restricting what people can say on their platforms that don't actually break other laws.
Oh.
It's an anti-censorship bill.
Okay.
Right. So you can't just be like, that doesn't suit my politics. Delete if you're YouTube or Twitch or whatever. I don't know why I said that about Twitch. I've never heard about that in Twitch, but it's just a bill. But it got introduced, so I thought that was noteworthy. So that's the first time I've actually seen legitimate legal action and not just grousing. So to me, big tech has become almost like they're almost like well, I'm not going to go there, not yet. Anyway, I'm going to avoid that topic.
I know where you're leading.
They're not. It's not a friendly thing when you see people on YouTube complaining about how bad the revenue model has gotten for them, and their only sin is that they talk philosophy. And it's not even any particular philosophy. It's just that they don't. It seems like they only want entertainment and technical how-to shows, and if you deviate from that at all, they punish you.
They want the least controversial stuff possible so they can sell ads.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I knew that from the beginning with the show. I didn't expect to make a cent, but of course you could always donate, and you can donate to Area 22. And if you mention me, maybe that'll work for everybody. Donations are accepted, but it's not required. I'm not going to guilt people into paying for something that, that it's not a good business model, right? I just want people to enjoy it and learn and know what's going on. So, so kind of an interesting personal news. I'm just gonna. People are gonna think I'm paranoid when I say this, but I confirmed it like 80%. So that's good enough for me, and I'm gonna go with it. It's saying it's confirmed 80%. I'm pretty sure someone just tried to spearfish me on Facebook. So someone actually hacked into someone else's account, friended me, and this is a person with very few friends on Facebook, and pretended to be that person and started having a conversation with me. And I don't want to talk about where the conversation went, but I was very suspicious. You know, I don't have a ton of friends on Facebook because I kind of joined in the revolution late. I wasn't back in the early Wild West days when you could just friend anyone. There was no limit and all that stuff. So I'm like, this is really weird. What is going on? It was a very vague conversation, kind of like a conversation on Law and Order or something. Mm-hmm. You know, like whatever they're talking about when they find a body. You know, so you know, very vague and just, hey, you get that game? Yeah, that was really crazy. Hey, look at the weather. You know, like it was really like, what is this person talking about? And they were trying to pump me for information, I think. So if you get that and you're in the tech field, be careful because there's people out there popping Facebook accounts just to try to get people who are in the know in tech.
Yeah, I intentionally never made a Facebook account.
Yeah, I intentionally didn't either for years, which is probably the reason I caught this so easy, because I was like, there's not that many people on here. There's not that many people in my circle. There's no way that I know this person. They're not going to be having this conversation with me. It doesn't make any sense with what I know about their personality. So, anyway, I hope I'm paranoid and I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened.
It could also be one of those apps, if you grant those apps permission to like your profile, and it might like do that from that end. You know, like those, oh, look at what celebrity I am, or those kinds of apps on Facebook.
Right. Well, I know who this person is.
No, I'm saying that could have activated that. Because they're back, because back in the Wild West days, what used to happen is you used to have to worry about people going on there, and then what would happen is it would post like, oh, here you can get Ray-Bans for $30, or you can do this, and it just tags your entire friend list in like those spam posts.
Okay, I see. I guess I'm not ruling out the possibility it wasn't personal. You know, that's why I'm kind of putting out a general. The paranoid thing would be okay, this is after Matt Newhall, right? You know, but instead I'm like, no, I think this is really, this was after people who are in the know in tech and trying to get whatever they can get. So hopefully I'm wrong and it wasn't after Matt. I'm right and it wasn't after Matt Newhall. Because that's bad. Advanced persistent threats are scary.
Especially if you think they're targeting you specifically.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to beat that, right?
Yeah.
Eventually they're going to find it in.
They'll find something eventually.
Right. So I've been pretty careful. I kind of pretend to be someone else sometimes and look at my own stuff and say, okay, what can I figure out about me? You know, and is that enough to get into a critical account or whatnot? But
so that actually reminds, when you said I sometimes had to take a look at myself to see what I could find, that reminds me of, it probably still exists, but this was years ago when I saw it and I forgot what it was called, but there used to be this bot on Reddit where you could ask it, like, what do you know about this person, or what do you know about me? And it just goes through the post history of that username and just quotes every time he says, I am, or any, like, uses the phrase I am, or like I do, or I, pretty much anything with I verb, it quotes and puts it off to you, and it's pretty scary, like what it just instantly gives you.
And where was this again?
Reddit.
Reddit. Oh, okay, got it.
So basically, any post you ever made that says I do, I am, I was, it just...
Right, and just forms a database of all the things that make up you. Yeah, okay, I can see it. Well, you know, I read Reddit, but I don't post there. Yeah. So, and I also, you know, it's interesting. I almost have different personalities on every platform, and I kind of did that on purpose. You know, it's not that they're all true, they're all part of me, but I just don't show the whole thing, so that if someone's like, oh, I know everything about this guy, no, you don't. Even this show, you know, you don't see everything, because there's only some things that are appropriate for this format, so. Okay, so that's cool. So I actually got a couple of gifts for the show, so I don't know if you've been watching the show on a regular basis, but it's kind of funny because it was just supposed to be a gift, like in an Amazon envelope, and they came in these ridiculous boxes. So I've already peeked it and I know what it is, but check this out. I got these boxes, and now I have wine bottle cork stoppers. Reusable wine bottle cork stopper, so I don't have to be wood chippering wine corks into the wine anymore. So only the best of the Technocrat Live, of course. Diamond and M for Matt. I don't know why it wasn't T for Technocrat, but I'll take M for Matt. So anyway, if you feel I can't believe they did this. This is like absurd to me.
That?
It was a listener. Let's just say that. So yeah, I was like, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. It's really kind. I'm not sure if they want to be named, so. All right, so what are we going to start? So you and I have. Is there anything that you want to talk about on the show tonight? Anything in particular? Is there something that you had in mind for coming in here and chatting about? Or so I wanted to talk about mechanical stuff and Marauders. So if you hate cars, you're probably going to be bored for at least a half an hour. So Rocco and I met, and he was working on his Marauder, and I met him through a Marauder club. I also own a Mercury Marauder, and I love it. I think it's a great car, but I don't want to talk about why I think it's a great car. I want to talk about why you think it's a great car. And the thing that really amazed me about Rocco and his Marauder is that he had actually done a supercharger upgrade on his car completely on his own. And honestly, I know how to do that in theory, but in practice it's completely different. I mean, so I can actually illustrate this. I don't think you noticed this on the way in.
All right.
So I actually brought my trilogy book.
I have the same exact thing.
So
I just printed it out and bought a binder at CVS.
Well, yeah, check this out. He didn't know it was down there. So this is.
If I knew, I would have brought mine too.
Yeah. So this is a substantial piece of literature on every step that you need to take to put a supercharger on a Marauder, specifically the Trilogy kit. Now the Trilogy kit literally comes in one box, and I bought a Trilogy kit, and it was easy. So I bought the Trilogy kit. I looked this over, and I went, no, I don't have 2 months to do this, and I called up a speed shop and said, can you do this for me? They said, sure, no problem. And a week later I got my car back, and they had dyno tuned it and everything. But that's not what Rocco did. Rocco did it a little differently. What did you do with your car?
So someone was selling a Trilogy kit used on the forum, but it was missing a lot of parts.
Oh, okay. So it was part of a Trilogy kit.
Yes, it was part of a
Was this
Trilogy
in the Trilogy kit?
No, I had to ask someone on the forum, and they emailed me a PDF.
They emailed you. Well, okay. So that was convenient enough,
Yeah.
right? But still, so you printed out the PDF, and then you had to find all.
Then
these
I got
parts.
a hole puncher and I bound it up. But
Yeah, nice. Oh, you made it on. So this is the official one for my particular trilogy, but and I've only dropped it and played 52 pickup once with all the pages. And it's a lot more than 52 pages, but how many pages is this? So how long did it take you to get all those parts?
So I bought the parts slowly over the course of like a year and a half. I wasn't in any rush. I was basically waiting to see good prices on like places like eBay and forums.
Right.
So
So I'll leave that over there. Don't worry, and we kind of have a thing here where we're looking for sponsors. They're not going to be a sponsor. They're not making superchargers anymore.
oh yeah, they're out of business.
They've moved on and done. They're doing other things.
Actually, I think they're still in business. They don't work on the Marauder anymore.
Right. So yeah, they made 250 kits and that's it.
Yeah.
They're sold out. Long since sold out. Actually, the Trilogy Marauders have appreciated a ton.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah, and so this is kind of interesting. So I think a lot of people are either like, yay, they're going to talk about Marauders, or they're like, what are they? Why? They're big and slow, and so why would you bother with a big and slow car? This is tongue in cheek. I know the answer, right? But I want to know what you think.
Well, honestly, at the time when I was looking for a new car, I wanted a four-door car because at the time I had to drive a few friends around quite frequently.
Okay.
So I wanted a four-door.
So it was a practical thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me too. It was family. So.
Also, a lot of my friends, they all had either an 03 or an 02 GT Mustang.
What do you mean?
Like 4 of them.
If you've never been to a Ford car show, so it's like, maybe it's like, I don't know, 2/5 Ford cars and 3/5 Ford cars that also happen to be a Mustang.
Yeah.
It's 3/5 Mustangs,
Yeah,
people.
it's more than half Mustangs.
Yeah, it's a lot of Mustangs out there. They never stop making the Mustang, and it shows.
Yeah.
So if you don't like Mustangs, don't go to a Ford car show because there's going to be a lot of Ford.
You'll
There's
be bored.
going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of walking through miles of Mustangs. I love Mustangs, but yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm kind of bored with them. I like something a little different. So. Why? Well, also, why? You could have just gotten a Crown Vic. Why didn't you?
I was originally looking for a Crown Vic, and then a friend mentioned to me, "Why don't you look at the Marauder?" And at the time, I never even heard of the Marauder.
Right.
And when he mentioned it, I looked at it. I was like, "Oh wow, this is perfect." And then I started looking for one, and 6 months later, I had one.
All right, and then you're like, okay, so I need to upgrade this. Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I did too, right? So Marauders are like the most undertuned one of the most undertuned cars ever. You know, they basically designed this thing to have a lot more power out of the gate, and you can do a ton. You can get a ton more power out of the engine with minimal upgrades, and you don't have to upgrade all the peripherals.
From the factory, it would go into overdrive at 30 miles an hour.
30 miles an hour?
30 or 35. It was in that area.
What?
And it was like if you were retaining 30 and 40 miles an hour and you punched the gas, you basically went nowhere because you were stuck in overdrive.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, did you notice that when you were driving, or okay?
Yeah, I noticed it.
So it handles really well and it stops pretty well, but yeah, with the acceleration was subpar for a muscle car.
Yeah.
And it's like, how is this possible? It's like it basically is a Lincoln block, right? It's a Lincoln.
Well, it's
the Lincoln Aviator block with Cobra heads. Is that correct?
It's the same exact motor as the Mach 1 Mustang.
Oh, okay. So it's a Mach 1 Mustang.
The only difference is the intake manifold is mirror casted. So the intake's that way instead of that way.
Right, to match the car.
Yeah.
Right, because they didn't want to redesign the whole hood.
Yep.
Right. Which you have to do, by the way, if you turbocharge it, which is one of the reasons it was so easy to get one of these trilogy kits. Yeah, usually the guys with the turbochargers. Oh, no, it's superchargers also. If they do superchargers, it has to be facing, the intake has to be facing the other way.
Oh yeah, most of the superchargers you have to put it the other way because those kits are usually made for Mustangs. That's why.
Right. So then you have to relocate your battery and all the peripheral stuff on this side to the driver's side.
I think they use the battery tray from the '80s Mustang, and it fits on the left side of the Marauder or the right side. Right. The right side of the Marauder.
Right, you're facing, in your mind, you're facing the hood, right?
Yeah.
So you got left, right, I don't know. The one with the steering wheel in America. I don't think they made a left-hand drive Marauder, so all the Marauders
It only ever sold in USA and Canada.
Oh, okay. I know they're all over the world now because people have been shipping them.
People exported it.
Yeah, people have been shipping
When I bought that car, I bought it used at a dealership in '06.
Yeah.
I put down a deposit. Someone out there came and tried to outbid me after I put the deposit down because he wanted to export it.
Wow.
He
Really?
offered the dealer like $1,000 more than I already gave them, and they had to say no because I already gave the deposit. So and I was
Nice.
standing right there. So
Was this New York or?
yeah, this was in on Long Island.
Okay, so there was probably law protecting you then. I don't know what the state laws are, but I actually bought mine in Massachusetts. So I had an
Yeah,
interest-
you know that some places they're gonna more money. Yeah, like,
Yeah. No, in Massachusetts actually some of the best laws for. At one point it looked like I was going to have to fall back on the lemon law. I think I told you this story. So it turns out I had bought mine at a dealer too. Turns out it had been an accident. Either they didn't know about it or they were lying about it. I think they probably didn't know about it, but you never know. And the wiring harness had been severed so that it had been hit hard enough that it bent the fender in and they cut the wiring harness and respliced it. So as soon as I did some hard driving, it went and my check engine light went on.
how many? This is like the main harness of the engine.
Oh
my God.
The main wiring harness. So I mean, it sounds like a nightmare, but I bought it at a Ford dealer. I even got an extended warranty. I can't believe they sold me this. I think maybe they didn't know because they sold me an extended warranty. By the way, they're out of business now, so I'm pretty sure this.
What, the dealer is?
The dealer is, yeah.
Well, Ford shut down like 3/4 of their dealerships.
I can see why they, after that debacle, just that debacle alone.
Well, Ford was actually kind of smart. They preempted the major crash by closing their dealerships.
Right. Yeah, no.
That's the reason why they're the only one that didn't have to take money from the government.
So I'm not a Ford fanboy. I like some Chevys, I like some Chryslers, I like some Fords. And I even like Tesla. I mean, I really like them all, but they all have strengths and weaknesses. So I was on an investment message board like years ago, and someone had found, this is back in the early days of Amazon, they didn't really have good permissions on groups yet. So the car companies actually had reading groups because it was mostly books back then, and so they were looking at, okay, what are people buying through these reading groups? They get a group discount or something, and I think Chevy was like romances or something, or fantasy, and like one of them was like Chevy was self-help books, Chrysler was like fantasy books and science fiction books, and Ford was statistics books. I'm like,
really?
Yeah, it was really weird. It was just it wasn't in the news or anything. This was just someone doing their own investor research and like, I think I know which one knows what's coming. It's actually done the numbers and sees where things are going. So, and they were the only one who didn't need a bailout, and I don't think that's a coincidence. So,
it's because they shut down their dealerships ahead of time before the market flopped.
Yeah, they kind of knew what was coming.
Yeah.
So I'm really bummed out about the death of the frame car.
I know.
That was so the Panther platform. In case you don't know, the Crown Vic, the Town Car, the Marauder were all on the Panther platform, and that was the first. That was the last of the
body on frame
platforms that were out there, and the last new car in that platform was the Marauder. And then after the Marauder got killed off, then they only did one minor refresh on the Grand Marquis, and then I don't think they did any refreshes on the Lincoln Town Car. And
they did a slight refresh on the steering wheel buttons. They made them bigger or something.
Yeah. Oh, I remember. I actually saw a Doug DeMuro on that. And,
yeah, I saw that exact thing.
Oh, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's
They
okay.
did it for old people so they could see the buttons better.
Right. There you go. Okay, great marketing there, guys. Yeah. So. Yeah, they didn't market the Marauder at all. And actually, in case you think this is like a fanboy rant or something, so the same thing just happened with the Chevy SS. So if you don't know what the Chevy SS is, guess what? You're just like everybody else. Nobody knows what the Chevy SS is because GM didn't advertise it. They made it for 4 years. They still have new ones in dealerships right now. It is a V8 in a mid-size sedan. They call it a full sedan. It's a mid-size sedan. In a mid-size sedan, and it's monstrously fast. So if you like Chevys and you want to get a collectible car that has 1,000 features, it's actually a Holden. They brought it over from Australia because Australia was a little more engine happy.
The GTO we had a few years ago is also a Holden.
Right. Yes. The last of the Pontiacs were really fast. All the G whatever, G8s, G7s, G8s were excellent. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's not like you have to go back 10 years to get that. You can get right now at 2018. I think it went up to 2018. Chevy SS. I don't know why they call it SS. It's really crazy because they would always have a Chevy model SS. That was the nomenclature until this one car. So without advertising, of course, everyone's confused. They're like, "What? It looks like a Malibu. What is this thing?" And but it's the same thing that happened with the Marauder. They ran one ad, and that was it. That was the whole ad base, and it was not a great ad to run because it made it. It's actually, is
that the one where the two cars go sideways in the parking lot?
Yeah, that's
they
it.
Sidestep.
Right, and it's actually it's a reasonably narrow car. It's a little bit more narrow than the Caprice base models.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think
it doesn't feel narrow when I have those big side view mirrors folded out.
Yeah, no, but it is a little.
I have to fold those in to make it into my garage.
It basically played on everybody's worst fears. I think most people are like, this thing's not going to fit anywhere because people I think who are going to want that car are going to be urban.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to fit in parking spots. So, hey, look, here's a car you can't fit in parking spots. I'm not going to buy that. So, I was. So, I have I'm curious. You still have the Marauder?
Yeah.
So it's 2019, and are you like done with it? Are you bored with it? Is it, isn't there faster cars out there? Or?
No, I mean, I don't know. I kind of like it mainly because of all the work I did into it myself. Like, it feels like it's mine.
Right.
So I don't really see myself getting rid of it anytime soon. Also, it's a weekend driver now. I don't drive it every day.
Right. So, I mean, aren't you ever just tempted to just sell it and buy a Hellcat Red Eye and be done with it?
Not really, no. Honestly, I'd rather have the car I did with my own two hands than the fast one from the dealership.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. So you don't. Is it a sleeper thing or is it a custom thing?
Custom thing.
Yeah, I don't understand. There's a ton of people out there. I think it's just because people don't know cars.
It's also probably the same reason.
I want to teach them cars on this show because I just like don't get stressed out, man. Just because you don't know why a car is fast, people shouldn't tease you or bug you or bother you. People are like, if a car is fast from the factory, everyone's obsessed with it. And it's like, yeah, but it may be so tuned out that you can't upgrade it at all. And then a jalopy that pulls up next to it is going to have a whole new engine thrown in it because it was completely under everything in the vehicle platform was under spec, and it can just destroy it off the line and maybe even outhandle it if it was upgraded properly. I love resto mods. Some people. So in case you don't know, here's how it works. So if you're looking at classic cars, this is not quite a classic yet, but
not yet.
But we're getting there. But if you're looking at classic cars, you have an original numbers matching car, right? That's the supposedly the holy grail. I'm not that interested in numbers matching cars. I mean, they're interesting from a historical point of view to see see exactly what it looked like in 1971 or something. But I don't really care about that. I want to drive the thing, and to me, the maximum drivability is the best. So a resto mod is where you take a car and you basically make it look more or less like it did from the time. Maybe a few visual upgrades, maybe not. It's kind of up to you. And you completely upgrade the mechanical parts of it. You know, the brakes, the suspension, the rear end, if it has a rear end, usually they do, and the engine, you know, and all that stuff. You might even go crazy and like have stuff like air conditioning and a really sweet stereo system and an upgraded interior and stuff. And to me, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather have.
Have you ever seen the chassis swap cars that people do sometimes, where they like take like an old Charger and they buy like a body for an old Charger, and then they buy like a 2006 SRT Charger,
right?
And then they just strip the body off and they weld the body onto the modern Charger, so it looks like and it has like the modern interior and the.
I have
you ever
not
seen
seen
those?
that. I have. All right, so I'm thinking of one in particular that I know you've seen too, because there's a ton of Marauder discussion. There's a Marauder dedicated forum that we're both on. The X100. Someone put an X100 body on a 2003 Marauder.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It looks exactly like a 19. I don't know if it was a 70 or 71, but it was an X100 Marauder. And these huge black cars. They look ridiculous. They're so huge.
Oh, that's like
they're
that
beautiful.
One? Like the big black, like the 70s Marauder we saw at Carlisle this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I saw one. I would have remembered if I saw it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because there was one at Carlisle this year.
So Marauder was actually this is another thing like SS, right?
Yeah.
SS is a trim line.
Yeah, it was an engine option.
It was an engine option in a regular car.
Yeah.
So it's basically like, hey, do you want a sleeper? Maybe you want a Marauder, and they would just give you like a Fairlane or something. Was Fairlane one of them?
Yeah, they had the Fairlane, the Monterey. There was a couple different cars.
And then you could get the Marauder option on it, which was an engine upgrade. And then eventually they just had a dedicated Marauder badge on a car, and that was for a couple of years. So someone took one of those cars and put it on a 2003 Marauder, cool. And I assume they put a supercharger on it because they are a little slow off the line, especially now. They weren't that slow when they came out, but cars have gotten really crazy fast.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to a guy in a speed shop, and I'm like, yeah, you guys making like 7-second cars? And he's like, no, it's really slow. You know, I'm like, all right, well, maybe not for my budget, but yeah, I guess that's just people who are sinking money into cars and not even aiming the 7s anymore. It's crazy. So yeah, I mean, there's street challenges where people have 6-second cars and 5-second cars, and I don't know if there's 5s. It would have to be very high 5s. You know, it starts to become. It's really hard to out-accelerate gravity if you're rear-wheel drive, because if you go faster than the speed of gravity, the front of the car lifts up in the air, right? So 2.7 meters per second squared, which also works out to about 2.0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. If you accelerate faster than that in the 0 to 30 space, you just do a wheelie. Because you literally just hit, if your rear tires have enough grip to do that, the whole car just hinges upward like it was a hydraulic or something.
Yeah, that's when they get the wheelie bars.
Yeah, that's when you get the wheelie bars, right? So that's one of the reasons you're starting to see cars go faster than that now, is because they're typically all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
You know, but of course then they can't. They top, the gears are very low, so they top out at lower speeds. So have you had your car to the track, or?
A few years ago, I went to Englishtown with a few guys on the Marauder forum, but they're closed now.
Englishtown's closed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went there too.
They're shut down.
Where can people go to the track?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and all right, so now you heard it. So if you're not interested in this stuff, and you're like, oh, why are those terrible people street racing?
I know there's one
no
further
tracks.
upstate. I know there's one further upstate, and there's one in Connecticut.
Right.
But there's nothing within like 2 hours.
Right. I mean, I'm not trying to justify people like murdering pedestrians, but you know, what the hell, man? Why are there no tracks? I don't get it. I mean, there's a lot of great, really powerful cars on Long Island. I mean, I've seen the meets.
Yeah, I know.
I've seen the meets down in
and I guarantee most of them have never been to a track.
To the beach, and there's like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and high end GT 500s and SR1 Corvettes and just crazy stuff, and where the hell are they supposed to try to, actually find out if sixth gear works? How do you? And they've never been in top gear. They literally have never been in top gear.
Okay, I actually had a similar problem with my car recently. So about a year ago, the battery in the car was dead, so I had to reconnect a new battery, yada yada. So then it came time for inspection. I couldn't pass inspection because the engine computer didn't complete its tests. But I already had like almost 500 miles on the car since replacing the battery at this point. So like, what the hell's going on here? So I look up online, I just found a PDF that just described what the Ford engine check tests are on a modern computer, like what it does. And one of them was checking the emission outputs when you're more than half throttle. With the supercharger, I can't go more than half throttle.
At 2,000 RPM.
I can't go more than half
At
throttle
70 miles an hour.
regular roads.
Well, you could.
Well, I kind of had to drive down to the beach and floor it to get it to pass emissions.
I'm doing it for the planet, baby. That's a great excuse. You get pulled over. I'm saving the planet. What do you mean? Well, I'm supporting our emission standards, right? They're making sure that our engines are running healthily.
To be honest, though, I'm very careful when I drive my car. I'm not the type of person that goes out racing and speeding around. I tend to do just a little bit above the limit. I don't.
Whatever he says.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. I don't like screwing around with my car too much.
If you did, would you say you were?
Well, I just did say I did when I had to pass emissions.
Right. See?
And it felt really strange for me because it wasn't something I normally do.
Right. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I just went through the same thing. I got my car repainted. There was a problem. So there was some factory problems with the paint, and I got my car repainted, and it had been sitting for months.
Yeah.
They were just working on it for months. They were very careful. They did a great job.
The exact test I needed to pass was accelerate from 0 to 40 at more than half throttle.
See, I sometimes I use burnouts in lieu of the horn. So I don't know how many seconds does that have to happen for? Because
you just have to make it from 0 to 40 while staying more than half throttle.
See, I probably do that.
Well, apparently I didn't.
And once I'm warmed up, it's on.
Yeah.
I'm like, how fast can I destroy my rear tires?
Well, it's also kind of funny. The cruise control does not know about the supercharger. When I put cruise control on, it actually like when it goes into speed.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I found my fuel economy is much better with the supercharger. Also, I have a lower gear on mine. I didn't upgrade the gears, so I have the three. I still have the original 3s on there. So, what was it, 3.73? I think. I could be wrong on that.
I couldn't say it was much better. Highway was about the same.
Right.
City is definitely less.
Yeah. So I noticed it was the same or better, which is insane. You upgrade the engine and you get better fuel economy. So. Yay! Well, it's like they did that Top Gear where they had the Prius, and they're like, okay, what happens if we take a Prius on the track and just floor it around the track the whole time? And of course, it got worse fuel economy than the BMW V8 they were up against, because it's not meant to be driven like that,
right? The only reason Prius gets good fuel economy is the regenerative braking. If you're not using the brakes,
right. If you've got the engine pegged at the maximum RPM before you're bouncing off the limiter and you're going around the track, it's not very efficient, right? So if you're going to be driving 80 miles an hour. Most of the country is like that. Yeah. Actually, this is the silly part. So a lot of these emission regulations are written for the cities, and when most of the country is just empty, 75 mile an hour speed limits.
Yeah, I know.
They don't care, and they're not really enforcing them. They're like, whatever. It's just cows. Who's going to see you?
I noticed that when we were driving to Pennsylvania this year.
Yeah, I kind of want to do my own. I just did a cross country trip. I want to do another one just by myself in my car, just to get to that place where I can do 85 and 90 and no one will even blink an eye. Because I'll probably end up in jail. Never mind. I didn't admit to any of that. So, all right. Well, so you prefer a sleeper, huh? So, what's your dream car? What would you do? What would you build that would be the perfect? I mean, obviously, the Marauder is one of your dreams, right?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be bothering putting all this energy into it. He just wanted a show that we were just at. Just wasn't best interior, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
But what would you build if you could have unlimited budget, had a garage to put it in, but you have to drive it once in a while? You can't.
Yeah, unlimited budget. I'd probably do what I was talking about earlier, like one of those chassis swaps where they put the old classic body on a modern car.
So you would get a red eye, but then you'd do something. You'd put an old like Charger on it or
Yeah,
something.
something like that would probably be.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that would be my dream car, something
that's
along those lines.
Fist bump for the rest of the mods, man. That's freaking.
I don't have a particular model in mind, but something like the old body on the modern chassis and interior.
Yeah, I just
because at the end of the day, it's still a modern car.
Well, the old cars, also the old. I mean, with the exception of a few exceptions of. Even then, I don't know. I might do it with a Marauder, but I don't know if I want to do, like, all the cars, or at least partially folded metal bodies at this point. They're not frames. They're not full frames. So, I don't know. It's not as safe. It really bothers me. So I have this test. They have a bunch of tests that they do for crash tests. And they invented a new crash test the year after Ford announced that they were going to be canning all their frame models. So it was still out, but there was not going to be any new testing. It wasn't going to affect them. And I know they did it because it probably bothered the people at the testing agency, the safety agency, that the frame car was going away. Yeah. But I wish they had done it for 1 year while the frame car had one new model coming out, so they could compare the results. It's the headlight line test where they crash a car's headlight.
Like off center?
Off center.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And they crash basically just right along the fender of the car into a wall.
Yeah.
And modern cars do terrible on this, and this is actually what's the most likely scenario in a head-on collision. So basically, if you have a head-on collision in a frame car, it's not going to be pleasant, but it might not kill you, because what will happen is the frame will basically just completely distort. It'll absorb, the frame is basically, it's like, think of it like an I-beam. It'll bend and warp and kind of fold up on itself.
Assuming the airbag works properly, because you don't have much of a crumple zone either.
Well, no, you don't have much of a crumple zone, but what will happen is the car will spin out, the rear will just spin around and come around the side, and that's where the energy will go, because the car is strong enough to redirect their energy. But the modern cars, they're just meant to absorb and fold in the energy. So what ends up happening is the car is in your lap, right? Yeah. So like the car doesn't have enough strength anywhere in it to redirect the energy. So they all do terrible on these tests. So everyone's like, oh yeah, the new cars are safer. No, they're not. Yeah, I don't know. It really bothers me. So for me, I love frame cars, and I think they're a lot safer, and I really hope that. Last week I was talking. I don't know if you heard about this. So there's what was the name? I don't know if I put it in my notes. But last week I did a thing. They have a hub replacement technology. So a company just built a hub replacement for just like one model of car, but they're going to do more. And basically what it is you just you take the tire and the brakes off, and you bolt the whole hub assembly, and you bolt their hub assembly on with their rim and their tire, and it's an electric motor. In the inside of the rim, it has a brake rotor because it's an integrated unit, and because of that, they can have a much smaller caliper because the brake rotor is bigger. So it has. So
is this for like electric conversion?
It's an electric conversion that you can do on a gasoline car or any car. It's 100 horsepower per wheel. So you can add 100 horsepower to an existing car, or you can do.
Would you be able to put the conversion on a front wheel, or it's really only for the rear for clearance reasons?
Well, right now, I think the example that they gave, I mean, this is a brand new, they just came out this year.
Yeah.
It was at the auto show, I forget which auto show it was, but SEMA maybe? I think it was SEMA. So it came out at SEMA, so you can probably just look it up, electric wheel conversion SEMA for 2019. Or maybe it was late 2018. Well, anyway, so, but yeah, so what it does is it listens to your CAN bus, and when you're hitting the accelerator, it just tells the electric motor, okay, accelerate. And in line with what you just tune it to, so they match up, and then it just adds power.
Just adds power.
It's as if you're hitting the gas pedal going downhill, right?
So if you have a front-wheel drive car, you put these on your two rear wheels, that's 200 horsepower.
Your all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And if you put 4 on, then you've added that
well,
much.
I'm wondering if it will work with like the suspension of the steering and all that, because front is usually a little bit more complex to fix something.
But so here's the crazy thing, right? So I'm sure, what do you think when I tell you this? Like, oh, it's got to be heavier, right? So the amazing thing about it is they managed to do it without adding any unsprung weight.
Well, you
So-
got to add batteries.
You got to add batteries,
That's
yes.
that's going to be your weight right there.
So yeah, so the penalty is, so they said that Prius battery is good enough to run it, it's usually just going to be using it for acceleration, for performance.
Oh, so if you're already a hybrid, you just tap into the electrical system that's there.
Well, it's 150 pounds.
Yeah.
The battery's only 150 pounds. So for 150 pounds, you're adding 200 or 400 horsepower, depending on which. So there is a huge bit. I mean, you don't need anything else. You could just take a classic car, just replace the 4 wheels, and not even have a drivetrain in it other than that. I mean, they'd have to rig up something so that your gas pedal could tell it how fast you wanted to go. But that's it. You're done. So I'm like really psyched that this is the last hope for frame cars at this point. I mean, I don't understand why people are so obsessed. I know it's a little bit of weight savings, but it's so much less safe.
Well, the Marauder doesn't have CAN bus.
Oh, I know, yeah. Yeah, well, that's a good thing.
That came out in 2006, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Well, depends on the model.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So granted,
2006 when it was forced by law, I think maybe.
No. The Panther platform never had CAN bus.
Really?
Yep, it never had a CAN bus. It was always the same design. I think old stuff was.
Can you check that?
Yeah, sure.
Check when CAN bus was mandated in cars. CAN bus, C-A-N.
CAN, like can. Like,
When it was mandated?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that there was no if there's a mandate, it's.
Well, I know it's mandated
It's
in modern
post-Panther.
vehicles.
Yeah, so my truck doesn't. My 2014. Well, of course, trucks are different than cars, right? But
It says it was mandatory for all cars and light trucks sold in the United States since 1996.
no, that's OBD2.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, that's what we have.
2008.
2008.
Okay, yeah. So that's probably was new car. That's probably why they canceled the line. They're like,
Oh, no,
we don't want to put a CAN bus
They
in
kept
this.
going 2011, and the last Interceptor was 2012, the police Interceptor.
No, man, I just feel like they never retrofitted a CAN bus in there. But it's also probably, I would say also for sure, it's just cars, because my 2014 van does not have a CAN bus. So it's just the ECU computer.
Well, it wasn't-
And the telematics unit.
Well,
It's
even
isolated.
if they did retrofit it, I doubt it had all the features that a modern CAN bus has. They probably just swapped out the ECU with they probably just changed the OBD2 interface to CAN bus. That's probably all they did.
Oh, okay, yeah. So in case you don't know what the heck we're talking about, so your car has a network in it, and I'm just
At least
gonna-
CAN bus cars do.
Well, yeah. Anything from
CAN bus.
basically, depending on the model, anything from 2005 to 2012 will have this. Everything after 2012 will have it. There's no car that doesn't have it. Trucks are different. They probably have them now too, but like for sure, the older model trucks where things were being grandfathered in, like my van, were probably, you might even I don't know, is there any pickups that wouldn't have it at this point? I think they would all have it. So the idea is you basically have this system, and you just have computers, like let's say you have I'm going to draw this. I don't know how good it's going to come out. See, this is just an overview of your car. And this is the steering wheel, and here's a little person, right? So here's a person driving. Can you see that? There we go. Maybe that's better. And these are the wheels, and there's the steering wheel. There's a person driving. And there's just these little computers peppered physically all over the car. No correlation to roll necessarily. Okay.
There you go, perfect.
And there's just these little computers all over the car. See how I'm drawing the dots?
Yep.
And there's a network between them. And whatever is typically, not always, but typically, whatever's physically closest to those dots is connected to that dot and controlled by that dot, that little computer, and they just all talk to each other. And sometimes they'll be paranoid and they'll have 2 separate networks, one for the drivetrain components and one for all the accessories. But that's a more recent development. That's very much car to car.
I would say if they're doing that finally, that's a great thing, but I didn't even know they were doing that.
I think a couple manufacturers are doing it in some cars, but not all.
Because there were so many, because there were the things with the Jeeps getting hacked through the entertainment system.
Right. So this is now we're getting to it. So this is the problem with telematic systems. This one right here, probably the placement looks familiar. That's the thing you're putting your DVDs into and listening to the radio and connecting your phone to. That thing, or maybe this thing here, are the two, which it might be, like, for example, might be the one that connects to the satellite or to the cell towers, usually it's cell towers now, through the telematic system. Those two are vulnerable to being hacked. So if you hack into one of those, this network has no security. They have your whole car.
Yeah, they all trust each other.
They all trust each other. It's just based on trust, and so you can flood the network, you can send false signals, and there's plenty of stuff out there about it. So this is. I mean, I sound like a crazy person. I should have a tinfoil hat for this bit, but it's true. This is really dangerous, and I mean, DARPA's got my back on this. There's been people out there doing examples of car hacking, and it doesn't have to. And typically, when people are low budget car hacking, they'll just plug something into the ODB2 port and try to control it through that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about coming into the internet and controlling your car through the internet. And it's going to happen.
That hasn't happened yet, but it will. So far,
we haven't. So
far, all the attacks require physically plugging something into the car, or I guess if you call Bluetooth wireless, well, I guess that's technically wireless, but that's not really over the internet.
Well, that's another vector, right?
Yeah.
So if you get somebody Bluetooth, with Bluetooth on in their car, and there's a vulnerability and they exploit it, if they're physically there in the parking lot, they can control your car.
Yeah, it was like that one with the Jeep where they were using it to turn the brakes and turn the wheel and all these other crazy things.
Right. Yeah. So I'm kind of glad that our cars, the Marauders, don't just have the ECU computer, and there's no way to connect into it. You actually have to physically get into the car and control it that way. There's been a couple of cases that were kind of funny, like why did that guy's car accelerate into a tree at 90 miles an hour? Sure, maybe the guy did it, but maybe he didn't. That wasn't really in his personality. There were those cases of unwanted acceleration in Toyotas for a while.
Yeah.
So it can happen. It's just.
But that wasn't computer. That was a glitch. That was mechanical.
It was mechanical, right? But I mean, this idea that it can't happen is crazy.
Yeah.
It's not true. It can't happen. Anyway, so it just what really bothers the heck out of me. Do you have any car with telematic systems in it? Did you isolate the cell stuff in them? Or?
Well, I have the Civic that I lease. It's like was it 2018, I think, or 2017?
Okay.
I forgot what year it is, but it's got the entertainment system that's basically running a version of Android.
Okay, cool.
And one time when I was at a stoplight, apparently when the car isn't moving, you could actually drag down, and it gives you the Android drop down like on a phone with the settings thing in the corner.
So they left one of the menus open.
So yeah, I could get to the settings gear from the corner. So I was like, okay.
And once you can get to the settings, you can change all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so I was playing around with it just to see what's going on. This was in my driveway now, and I was like, oh, it has Wi-Fi. I was
80 miles an hour down the parkway. Keep going.
I was like,
I'm kidding. These accusations are completely baseless.
it actually disables all the Android menus when you're going over to 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, at least they did that. Yeah, that was a good fail-safe. So they realized that someone might have
the menus that are built into the entertainment system UI, those work.
Right.
But the Android menus that weren't made specifically for a car don't work under 10 miles an hour.
Right. Right. Yeah, sometimes if I'm stuck in traffic, I can pair my phone to certain vehicles.
Yeah.
But other ones, no.
So I had the drop down on. I noticed the car has Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi? So this car doesn't have any sort of hotspot internet activity or anything like that. So I turned it on thinking it might be a hotspot I can connect my phone to. No, it's just regular Wi-Fi. It's trying to connect to my router in my house. It's just regular, like an Android phone, basically.
That's safe.
Okay, so this is useless on the road. So let me turn it on anyway, just to see what it does. And I paired it because I found a web browser app buried in the file manager on this thing.
Nice.
So
you're browsing the web from the telematics unit in your car in a way that was never intended.
Yeah, more or less. But what was funny is
but it's safe.
Well, what was funny is something must have been intended here, because about 5 minutes after I connected it to the Wi-Fi, I get a text message from my dealership telling me my tire pressure is low.
What? Creepy?
Yeah, well, I had a tire pressure light on at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I turn on the Wi-Fi, connects to my router. 5 minutes later, I get a text message from my dealer.
What?
So that's when I turned off the Wi-Fi, never to be turned on again.
Wow. So basically the ISORon was like, I see you. And you're like, no! And you took the ring off. Okay. And this is Toyota, you said? Honda, okay. So I think Toyota actually just opened up their hacking tools to try to encourage people to try to find bugs in their system.
All right.
So I don't know. I don't think Honda did that. I think it was Toyota.
That was another thing I was thinking. It's connected to open Wi-Fi, just Wi-Fi. That's gotta be some sort of security danger.
Right. Well, come on, man. I mean, so usually the way this works, the way it's supposed to work, this is an unofficial thing. I'm just talking about the official stuff. For instance, I have a GM and it connects through OnStar. OnStar is just a server on Chevy's network someplace, or a pile of servers, and it actually uses cell phone technology, like 3G or something, to connect to cell towers, and then once it has that internet connection established, then it makes a connection to OnStar. But this is an internet connection. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Even if, no matter how much they restrict it, they only have to make one mistake, and your car can be owned. And if they make that mistake in every car, it's a risk to cities. It's not just a risk to you. So I don't know. It drives me crazy that people don't understand this. So I actually I solved it for my car, and there's some instructions for some cars out there. So if you say, I want to disable OnStar, if you go out there and you just hit that, you call OnStar and say, I don't want OnStar anymore, they don't.
That doesn't disconnect the internet.
It doesn't disconnect the internet. All it does is shut the little idiot light off.
Yeah.
Right? And guess who's the idiot? Not them. Right? So, if that little light's off,
You have to actually remove the antenna or insulate it, or
you have to actually physically isolate the antenna. It's the only way you can really disconnect it. So really, I would like to see a law where there was mandated that there was a switch on it, like just a plain old on-off switch. Even if it's in the glove box, that you can go click, and now it's physically isolated from the internet. Because if there's an exploit, what are you supposed to do? Not drive your car? Hide inside and hope your car doesn't come to life and eat you like in the movies? Come on, man. My car's haunted. Get inside. What are emergency vehicles going to do in that scenario? So I don't know. Most of this, just to put it in perspective, Linux well, so most of these cars are running Linux underneath. Not all of them, not all components, but yeah, there's Linux in most cars somewhere. So
probably not the ECU itself.
Probably not the ECU itself, right? But it doesn't matter.
The entertainment system almost definitely.
You only need one of these points on the network to control the rest of the network, because there's no security on the network, right? So if there's a Linux box on there somewhere, Linux has security flaws all the time. It's not that it's bad.
Android has security flaws.
Android is Linux too. That has security flaws all the time too. And it has its own security flaws on top of that. So, everything like that on your system has holes in it on a regular basis. And if it's not being patched, if someone can come in on the internet and touch one of those holes, you're dead. Your car is owned. It's literally become a video game for somebody who may or may not like you. All right. Anyway, is that a good rant? I just had to go off on that. Any other ranty points on CAN buses and cars and well, you did tell me something about SCT.
Oh yes. Okay, so SCT is
why don't
the
you
tuner.
tell people what SCT is?
Yeah,
first?
so SCT is this little handheld device that's used for tuning Fords. I don't know if they still do it on modern
What do
Fords.
you mean tuning? What does it actually
do? So it
do?
allows it to, by tuning I mean changing the parameters in the ECU.
Right.
Like
so normally
the engine parameters.
So this isn't something where you can just find a button on your dash and change them.
Yeah.
You have to actually plug this thing into a plug either in your OBD2 port.
Yeah, the OBD2 port.
Or I guess it would be that always.
Yeah,
now.
I think it's just a serial connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, a powered serial connection, because it definitely will drain your battery if you leave that thing on there forever.
Yeah.
By the way, you also can save your ECU. If you don't know cars, if all the rest of this is just like, what? Right over my head, and you don't know what the hell we're talking about, this is a useful thing. So they actually sell battery savers you can plug into your ODB2 port. And because there's a powered connection there, it will power the ECU even while your battery's disconnected, and it won't lose that ECU data. It doesn't work the same on all cars, but it may save you a lot of hassle of having to retrain your car. Your car trains itself when you first turn it on. And says, okay, what altitude am I at? How old is my engine? How's my transmission running?
That was the ECU test that I was talking about earlier. That's when it's doing its training.
Right. So when it's not finished with its training, it's not ready, and it
can't pass inspection.
It can't pass inspection. So you don't want to get into that situation. You can buy one of those little things.
Yeah.
Use that power in the serial port to keep the ECU alive.
I bought a battery tender for my car. I went under the hood. I have like a little plug that I plug. It goes into the wall. Basically keeps the battery charged.
So, this is cool. I didn't even think I was going to get a chance to talk about this. So I didn't. Unfortunately, I don't have the numbers in front of me. But I found a combination. I also want to talk to the Marauder guys about it too, and I didn't get a chance either. So I found a combination of solar panel and lithium-ion battery pack, which not only acts as a jump starter, but you can also plug it into a solar panel, and the solar panel will recharge the battery pack, and while that's happening, it'll charge the car. So
I've heard of those.
because the solar panel will charge the car, but eventually it doesn't work because it's not powerful enough. But the solar panel is powerful enough to charge the lithium-ion battery, and the lithium-ion battery is definitely powerful enough to charge the battery in the car. It can actually put up a good fight. It can, it will have meaningful amperage if the car, is willing to soak it in. So it works.
So
definitely.
Does it actually charge, or just give it extra amperage so you can crank the motor over?
But no, it's charging it. So if it dips below whatever 12.2 volts, it'll start charging it, and that way your battery never actually goes dead. It's like having a battery tender without having the wire run out from your garage or something.
Well, there's no solar in the garage.
Right. Right. Well, because I tried it with the solar panel, and it wasn't that good because it's just so weak coming in from the solar panel.
Yeah.
But because the solar panel's charging, there's two separate management systems, one for the output, one for the input. With the whole thing's under $100. So I mean, just think about the hassle of changing the battery and having it, driving around like a maniac trying to get your car ready for inspection. $100, you never have to deal with it again. So I'll send you the model numbers. I'll put them up if people are interested. Leave a comment or something.
I actually have been thinking about this. I was thinking of ways, if I ever need to change the battery, I gotta get another battery in parallel, connect that, disconnect, because I don't want to reset this computer.
Right in the cigarette. Right in the cigarette lighter. That's what I did, and it seemed to work fine. So, unfortunately, that didn't help at the paint shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once I had it back, then it's okay now. I've kept it alive at least since. I've only driven it once since the car show, and it's been alive since. It's not a driveway queen. I'm just really picky about when I drive it. It is Queens, people. All right, so what were you saying about SCT?
Okay.
Right, sorry, I totally interrupted you and segued.
So the SCT is the tuner that allows it to change the parameters in the ECU to change how the engine works, basically change shift points, change the timing on the spark. It can make the car more powerful or less powerful if you really want to. But so the way it works is it creates a backup, it creates a firmware dump of the ECU and stores it locally, and then it wipes it and installs its own thing. But the way it interfaces with it is a very highly protected proprietary secret of the company.
Okay, so the interface with the ECU and how it's setting those parameters is something that nobody but SCT knows.
And I would assume Ford.
Probably Ford. Maybe not everything, right?
Well,
they might have reverse engineered some stuff.
I'm not 100% if they reverse engineered it or if they actually licensed with Ford. I'm not 100% certain how that worked out.
So if they reverse engineered it, it's possible they found new bugs, which you would think Ford would want to keep a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
Because they might save them a real embarrassing situation. But okay, anyway.
Well, I genuinely don't know what their partnership with Ford is.
I don't know what it is either. Yeah.
For all I know, Ford gives it to them. I really don't know.
Right. Well, it's a secret. That's the point.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things about it is I don't know about it anymore, but back when I was working on my car, they were pretty much the only company around that could interface with the Ford computers. There were one or two other ones, but they worked in a way that intercepted it was like a jumper pack. So basically you unplug the harness from the ECU, you plug it in there, and then it plugs into that device. It's like a man in the middle on the ECU. Almost.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
So that's what the other companies were doing.
Right.
And this was one that actually reprogrammed the actual Ford ECU without needing any of that.
Right. So you don't have to leave something in the hood all the time. Yeah. So I remember those, and they were not that great, and they only did certain things.
And also when you have the device in your hand, it's cheap plastic. It feels like it's going to fall apart any second. I don't know if you have one, right?
The old school ones? No, I went straight to the SCT.
No, I mean the SCT one.
Yeah.
It feels real flimsy.
Oh yeah, it is pretty flimsy.
Yeah,
right.
It's just like a little handheld device with an OBD2 port on the end.
Right. It's just
it weighs nothing.
It's the bits on the chip. It's not the physical thing.
So the device itself is $350. And when they sell to vendors, to other retailers, they're very strict that their retailers cannot sell it for less than $350.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Well, the price may have changed because I'm probably about 10 years out of date by this point.
Right. But I mean, just the principle of the thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I remember this was a problem when the Challengers came out. For a few years, nobody was able to put a supercharger on them because they weren't able to tune them well enough that they wouldn't have problems with engine-ending problems with tuning.
Yeah, that was because the performance places were trying to reverse engineer it.
They had
Chrysler
reverse
wasn't. Chrysler, is that right?
Yeah,
Chrysler wasn't sharing.
Chrysler wasn't sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we know why, because they wanted
yeah.
to do their own supercharger. That
Yeah.
was the rumor, and sure enough, it was true. They did their own supercharger. So.
But yeah, basically one of the things is they also mandate how much that you must sell tunes for. So like when you write a tune, it's just like some software. The red.
Okay, cool.
They just write some software for your computer, and it's very specific to your ECU. So there's different ECU codes. It has like a 4-digit code, and they actually ask you, "What's your 4-digit code?" And when you give it to them, and now they're able to tune your computer. And I don't know if you know this, but the Marauders, there's like 20-something different 4-digit codes, even for a low production car like that.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
And each one needs a different program.
Yeah, each one needs.
I don't know if it's an actual like encrypted key that's different, or if it's an actual program.
Well, I know that there's some.
Because that's one of the things they keep secret.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so, really, when anybody says, "Oh, I've written a new tune for the Marauder,"
they've written something generic that needs to be pushed to the
they've
4-digit
written
code.
They've written a program for SET to be pushed through the SET to the
Yes.
Ford ECU. Yeah, that's crazy, man. And you know, this is one of the problems with these are pretty cool. I like them. All right. Anyway, we'll see if they work. Yeah, this is one of the problems with the with that model is that it has all the inherent problems of closed source. Like I mentioned, like maybe we talk about DRM. You know, this is just DRM. It's just car edition. You know, you can't really. They're digital rights managing your engine tuner. And I mean, I think the claim originally is that they were trying to protect consumers, and I could kind of see that, right? Because but that's not. I don't know. I don't really buy it because you can blow your engine up just fine without messing with the engine ECU. You don't really use used oil. Don't change your oil.
Well, one of the interesting things that's happened to me
Red line when it's not warmed up. There's lots of things you could do to blow your engine up. You don't need to mess with the ECU to do that.
Well, one of the interesting things that happened to me is when I put the supercharger in, I couldn't tune it myself. I had to go to a shop for that part. So I was deciding what shop to take it to, and I didn't want to have to drive it too far.
Well, this is interesting for people who don't know.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you tune it yourself?
Well, for the whole SCT thing, you got to be an authorized vendor, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars to get to have access. And even if I did have access,
So it's a pay to play. It's a paywall. Okay, got
and
it.
even if I did have access, it probably would have been honestly a little bit too complicated for me because I know I'm a decent mechanic on my own car. I don't know how to program my own spark plug timing.
Maybe someone else, sure, but for you, I would say bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's bullshit and you just okay, let me just make myself feel better about the fact that I have to pay someone else to tune my car for me. But it's bullshit, man. Why can't we tune our own cars?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I know the risk.
Yeah.
I tuned my carburetor cars. It's not like that was particularly easy. I mean, sure, it's easy to do it badly. It's not easy to do it well.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. It's easy to do it badly. It's not easy to do it well.
Oh, and another way, that's another form of DRM, the SCT. When you load it, when you download your original firmware that came from the factory onto the thing, it VIN locks to your car so that only your car can use that device now. And the only way to unVIN lock it is to delete the factory firmware on the device. But when you do that, you can no longer touch your ECU. It is now locked in place. You can't push any other tunes to it. It's that tune for life.
Wow, that's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also need to be an authorized dealer in order to be able to blow it away in the first place. And if you get caught, you could lose your license, which is what Zach got banned for on the Marauder forum.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
That's not what he was born from the forum about. That's what he got banned from SCT for.
Oh, okay.
Because he used to be a tuner. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't know SCT banned.
SCT shut down his account and disabled any access to new ECU codes. So he was only able to tune.
Pricks.
He was only able to tune for ECU codes that he already had up to that point. After that.
Wow. So just to give you an example of why you would not want to have that intermediate device, or why you want to do, the SET method, where you're actually reprogramming the actual ECU. Like one of the things in our cars is it'll disable the alternator under hard acceleration.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that you're never going to get with that little intermediate device. But with a real tune, you can do. You can tell it, okay.
Well, our tunes did that from the factory.
Right, but you can adjust that. So you can say, okay, yeah, I have a big battery. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
After 3,500, I'm nailing it.
Yeah, in
Shut
fact,
it down instead of 4,500
when most people
RPM.
supercharge it, they actually disable that feature because they don't want to have a voltage drop when they're at wide open throttle, because the compressed air in the cylinders, we want the spark to be able to gap and not have a weak charge.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. But you should have the option, right?
Yeah.
It depends on what you're doing. All right. Well, I think we kind of, is there anything else you want to mention about SCT? I just can't. I don't see how this is different than being forced to buy vendor ink cartridges for your printer.
I think if anyone ever replaced an ECU with a Raspberry Pi, it'd be the coolest thing ever.
I'm in. Let's do it. We'll be the first two. You can watch us destroy our beautiful cars. Our beautiful collectible appreciating cars.
Yeah, we'd have to buy a junk car newer than 2008.
Right. Yeah. There's lots of room to do that in New York City. Yeah, it's really awesome. In Long Island, yeah. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Bitcoin. Do you mind talking about Bitcoin? Oh, by the way, cheers. Bitcoin hit a new midterm high today. So.
The price changes so fast. Let's see if it's still high.
Let's do the laugh. Yeah, I know, right? I could be everyone's like, what are you talking about?
It's about.
It drops down to 2K.
No, it's like 9,657.
Laugh with me. Anyway. It's our supervillain. This show is actually secretly for supervillains. So, if you're not qualified, we understand. I mean, what do you think about let's just go easy on this, technicals. What do you think is going to happen? Where are we? Are we headed for another crash? Are we headed?
Oh, you're talking about price now.
Yeah. Like what?
I usually don't get too involved in predicting prices, but I try to avoid that. But
come on, man, it's a horse race. You got to get into it. Yeah, big money. 31 odds.
So back in was it 2012 or 2013? I tried my hand at trading it. Mm-hmm. It was actually right after it crashed in 2013. I think was it 2012?
Right.
That December. Yeah. So it was right after it crashed from 1,000 and it was on its way back down.
Right.
So I put some money in exchange and I was like, I'm going to try trading and just see if I can do anything.
Right.
So I did stupid short trades, like an hour here, a couple hours there, just little up, oh I sold, little down, oh I sold, and I tried to make some money that way. Mm-hmm. I'm terrible at it. So I ended up.
You're not terrible at it. The problem is you're not experienced at it. People spend a life, because if you could do that well, you could just do it.
Well,
do that.
I think the issue is doing little short trades like that is just a bad idea in Bitcoin. You want to do longer term stuff.
It's not just a bad idea in Bitcoin. I would actually correct you and say it's just a bad idea everywhere.
Yeah.
The problem is that the people who run the exchanges and the people with the fastest network connections to the exchanges, like high frequency trading kind of people, can front run you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the technicals. If they have a faster, even if you have the perfect strategy, if their network connection's faster and they figure out what you're doing, they can front run you. So really super short-term trades like that, like an hour or less.
Yeah.
Don't even do it. Don't even play around.
So I ended up making a little bit of money at first, but then I lost a little bit of money. I was just slightly worse than break even. I was like, you know what, I'm done.
So how's your long-term trade going?
Oh, long-term I'm doing amazing.
Yeah.
Because I never really sold that much. I only sold little bits here and there.
Right.
Like when I had a bill or something.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
If I had a big expense, I'd sell some, and I usually sell some around Christmas time to do Christmas shopping.
So I bought a lot and I sold a lot. So I'm all over the map. But it's been overall an extremely. Honestly, I can't figure out a better trade in the history of the Earth. I mean, I'm not even kidding. I don't even think that there's been a bigger upside. There's been upsides like this, but they're typically one run up in Bitcoin, and there's been 6 or 7 of them, right? So far, there's been or 8 spikes where there were, and typically one of those spikes, if it was the spike, every time this happens, somebody accuses it of the same thing. They said, "Oh, it's a Ponzi spike," and we know what this looks like. There's going to be a crash and a collapse, and it's going to go.
When it goes asymptotic like that, it usually is because of hype. like when it's asymptotic.
Right. But it goes but
But you have to look at the long-term scale.
Most other investments, like almost every investment in the history of the world, when it goes asymptotic, it really is acting like a Ponzi, and it's dead after. It's just going to go down to the dirt, and it's never going to recover. And it just, that's not true. If they say that's what's going to happen, yeah, it does crash after, but it doesn't go to the dirt. It retraces a predictable percentage, and then, this is not investment advice. Make your own decisions. Talk to your accountant. I'm not a financial professional. I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, and screw you if you think otherwise.
Amen.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
So many people ask me for investing advice with Bitcoin. I'm like, no.
You just need a pair of eyeballs and a chart that can go logarithmic, and you just go back in time.
Yeah.
Because it'll keep scaling it out as you go, as you scale out the spikes up, and you'll see the same pattern over and over again. It goes this way, and then you scale it in so you can't see the spike anymore. Oh, okay, let me scale it in so you can't see the spike anymore. Yeah, same exact thing every time. So I don't know. I mean,
a lot of times
this is a no-brainer at this point.
People have asked me for investment advice in Bitcoin. I'm like, I don't want that responsibility. No way.
Yeah. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you to buy Bitcoin. I'm telling you to find a logarithmic chart and look at that. Just look at that thing and then make your own decision. Because I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. And I mean, I think I know what's going on. I think it's that this is a disruptive technology in money, and that's something that hasn't happened since gold, or banking, fractional reserve banking. You can argue that's the other one. So we have had spikes like this in the value of in the GDP of countries post fractional reserve banking. That's the only thing that's even comparable. But even that's inferior to this. It's just the spike is insane, and it's much faster. It doesn't take a lifetime. It only takes a year and a half. Yeah. So, all right. Well, so I'm a hodler. So I don't know about you. So hodler is the slang for long-term holder. If you don't know that, it started from a misspelled drunken post.
Yeah, misspelled drunk guy.
A misspelled one of a Bitcoin developer, I think. And
no, just some random investor. I was like,
I'm hodling till the end.
Man. No, he was drunk and he was ranting like, I did all these short-term trades and I lost a lot of money. That's it. I'm never trading again. I'm holding.
Yeah.
It was something like along those lines.
But he didn't say hold. He said hodl.
Yeah.
So we're hodling. Oh man, I love
HODL.
memes. HODL, right? Yeah. So you want to tell people what a no-coiner is? So they may not know.
I don't know what that is.
No-coiner. You know what a no-coiner is? Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell them then. So a no-coiner is someone who doesn't have any kind of investment in any kind of cryptocurrency, and it's actually slang that the people who are invested in.
Never seen that phrase.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't? Oh, I've seen it all over social media. So usually that's the reaction to someone who's like, "This is a Ponzi scheme. This is not safe. This is blah blah blah. Only people who are criminals use Bitcoin." Blah, blah. The usual ignoramus kind of lines about Bitcoin, and usually the reaction is, it's just a no-coiner. In other words, someone who hasn't done the research, someone who hasn't even tried any of the platforms, any of the currencies, even in trivial amounts of money.
Yeah.
He's no interest in how it technically works.
Usually I don't listen to any of the arguments against Bitcoin unless they're discussing technical arguments like the functionality.
Right.
Like if they're saying something is fundamentally flawed functionally, I'll listen to that guy.
Right.
But,
yeah, so I'm kind of in the middle. Like I'll talk a little bit about I'll look at the social trends, because to me, currency is like an artifact of how human beings act.
Yeah.
This is not something that you see anywhere else in nature. So this is a human thing, and whenever it's just a human thing, that's super interesting. And there are social interactions. People, other animals have kind of a reputation structure, but it's very limited compared to us. I also look at the technical stuff. I want to know how it actually works. And actually, something recently that this came up, I mentioned it to you before. I think it's going to be a dud because you said you didn't know anything about it, but I want to mention it because I had mentioned it in other shows. Microsoft Ion. So Microsoft Ion is actually an implementation of a W3C protocol. So they're in the group on W3C that's working on this protocol, and the idea is a blockchain-based identity manager.
Oh, I think I've heard about this. I just didn't know the name. I've heard this recently.
Okay, good. Yeah. So it was like Tether with me. I forgot all about Tether, and then I remember when you talked about it. Yeah, I had actually had conversations.
You know, I'm
kind of embarrassed about the depth of the conversations I've had about Tether, and I didn't even remember the damn name. There's literally thousands of alts out there. There's thousands of cryptocurrencies. So if you haven't, that's one of the reasons that it's easy to forget and lose track, and just like there's thousands of Linux distros.
Yeah.
It's just lots of options in open source. So sometimes it's mind-numbing.
That actually reminds me. So, are all the details about the Facebook Libra coin known, or are there still the details that we don't know about?
Just ask SCT; they'll give you the details for a flat dealer fee of $1 million. No, I don't know. No, of course they're not. It's Facebook; they're not going to tell you everything.
So, assuming it's going to be similar to Tether, it's distributed in that it has a blockchain, and they can censor who sends money to who.
Right.
But it's centralized in that it's a central issuer, and they control the monetary pool basically.
Right.
They can create and destroy Tether at will.
Right.
So it's centrally issued, decentrally transacted.
Centrally issued and decentrally transacted.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's unique about Bitcoin and some of the more pure cryptos, Bitcoin was the original crypto, right? And a lot of the blockchain work or hype, and there's both. There's legitimate work and there's also hype. Have been around trying to figure out how to have a distributed ledger. But also one of the things that Bitcoin did right is it had rules about having a very limited supply. So there was an incentive for people to hold on to it and not just, some people would argue that actually creates speculation, but I would actually argue it's kind of an anti-speculation.
Are you talking about a deflationary currency?
Yeah, I'm talking about the fact that Bitcoin is essentially deflated. There's a fixed amount of Bitcoin. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and the odds of that ever changing in the Bitcoin mainline, I think, are very, very low, because it would require a consensus of all the holders of the clients to actually change their protocol so that to recognize more than 21 million Bitcoin. I don't think that's going to happen. There are alts where that may happen, and there definitely are alts where that has happened, and Facebook's currency, as far as I know, has no limit.
Well, if they're pegging it to an actual currency, like an actual
they can't have a limit.
It has to be
They'll go bust in 5 minutes.
Yeah, they have to be able to adjust the monetary supply, because that's the only way you can keep it pegged at a certain value.
Right. So
because I did see one of the things they're bragging about is how it's going to have a stable value that won't fluctuate.
Right.
So
this is the same old crap. It's just got Facebook attached to it. It's just got Zuckerberg's name on it. So everyone's like, "Oh God, he's going to spend $1 billion trying to kill us." So I think that's the real fear, is that they're going to use their market position to try to leverage and crush people. But I'm not really that afraid of it, because honestly I think the banks are scarier, because they know finance better than Facebook does, and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out how to crush it. I mean, the banks couldn't figure out how to crush it. Facebook isn't going to either.
Facebook's doing it with them. You see who the partners are?
Yeah.
They got PayPal, MasterCard, Visa,
Well, so this isn't just.
It's not just Facebook.
It's not just Facebook. So this is probably the bank's latest attempt to try to get. And and on the one hand, we live in New York. I understand the financial institutions are here, and you don't want to you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. On the other hand, if New York doesn't embrace something that's going to happen anyway, we're just going to end up with a lot of unemployment and a really unhappy, poor city at the end of this.
There's also the question of, will it even be legal to use in New York, because of that whole crypto
the bit license. Yeah. So New York has its own unique rules for cryptocurrencies
that don't exist anywhere else in the U.S.
Don't exist anywhere else in the U.S. So Maxine Waters may have been talking about 49 states and not 50. When she was saying what she was saying. So, so banks have these know your customer laws. So here's the justification. Banks have know your customer laws as an anti-terrorism thing, but this is really a very recent thing. The countries. Whoa, sorry. Did I knock myself out?
You're still good. It's just careful where you step.
Sorry about that. The cryptocurrencies are. What the heck was I saying? I completely lost track. Oh no! I was
know your customer policy at the banks.
So yeah, know your customer was an anti-terrorism thing, but that's a September 11th thing. That's a relatively new thing. I agree that terrorism is not good for civilization, but is it really a civilization-threatening event? Is civilization over? if we don't allow commerce to continue. If we allow commerce to continue without knowing exactly who all the transactors are. I don't necessarily buy that. First of all, because you can operate in cash. Right? I mean, everyone's always like, Bitcoin, yeah, that's the way that criminals operate. No, actually, most criminals use cash. They like dollars. Suitcases full of dollars. I mean, duffel bags are probably more practical, if you're being realistic. But, like, what do you, why, I don't think that that's a reasonable, no, I'm good. You good?
I'm good.
You want more water?
Can I have some white wine?
Yeah, sure.
No coffee or anything?
This is cool.
No, I'm good.
Good?
I'm good, thank you. Well, that was easier to get out, that's for sure. You don't understand, like Steve's actually had to help me while I was talking to someone because I literally couldn't chum and walk and chew gum at the same time. Here you go.
Thank you.
No problem. By the way, I know nothing about wine, so if these are terrible, I'm sorry. Okay, that's a good wine on sale. I'm getting that one. So hopefully if somebody wants to sponsor us with good wine, that would be excellent. All right, I'll try to only wine once per sponsor per show. Yeah, but I just I don't buy it. I just don't. I don't want people to be funding terrorist networks. But on the other hand, most of the time, that's not what Know Your Customer is really hurting. Know Your Customer is just hurting commerce where people are just trying to get stuff done. And now they have to jump through all these hoops. Like, my original Bitcoin company was Bitfloor. You hear about
that's
Bitfloor?
not, what's Know Your Customer isn't the real limitation of New York State.
Right.
The limitation of New York State is the bar that they set that you must spend this much money and have a lawyer on staff to get such and such done.
Well, that's another one, too. It's both.
Like, you have to be willing to pay $100,000 for the New York State bit license to operate in New York.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you hold cryptocurrency in custody for someone else.
So actually, you're looking more at it from a corporate kind of point of view. I'm looking, so you need a minimum, so there's a barrier to entry that's a minimum of $100,000.
You must be able to throw $100,000 away to enter.
Right. You need to be big enough that $100,000 is a trivial amount of money in your, that is small enough to fit inside your profit margin.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. So basically, the only way to even
And that's
play,
just for New York State. What if other states start implementing similar things?
Right. So, yeah, okay, that's a huge problem too. But so I wasn't even looking at that problem. I was actually looking at the ground level problem. Like, like I was saying, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, Bitfloor, but they probably don't. So Bitfloor's gone. It's a company that used to be and isn't anymore.
That was like 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. And so they had, basically what they did is they just opened one bank account and they would use custom transactions. They'd give you an amount to send them and they'd use that along with an internal serial number to keep track of how much money, who sent them from where. And then they'd use that to issue you Bitcoin and send it to the wallet address that you sent them. But this is actually completely illegal now under, and they, in fairness, I don't think they did it to be shady. They just there's no other way to do this right now. We don't have the code. So it was one of the early exchanges.
Yeah, they were lazy. They didn't have the right code written. They didn't have the right
Nobody had any code written. I mean, it was just new, right? Their competitor was Mt. Gox. I prefer Bitfloor, what happened with Bitfloor to what happened with Mt. Gox. Magic the Gathering Online Exchange. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody got their money back if you count it in whatever Bitcoin was worth at the time when they went under, which is a lot less than it is now. They didn't get their money back. Yeah. So yeah, I guess they're both true, right? So these are two different levels. You have the customer level for the small businesses trying to use this as a transaction currency for normal interactions.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at some point it'd be nice to actually use this as a currency, but the problem is the regulations are blocking people. I mean, you have to give your driver's license in every time you use it to get a latte. That's how the bit license works. It's crazy, why this is not? I'm not funding It's not a terrorist latte. It's just a latte. Can't I just buy it? If I'm wrong about that, please tell me. I'd love to hear it, but I don't think I am.
Have you actually bought a latte and gave your driver's license?
No, I've actually completely avoided. I did a couple of, before the laws were passed, I did a couple of small transactions, like retail transactions, and I stopped after that because it's too complicated. I got to go to my account.
I use it for online purchases quite frequently.
I pay my taxes on. Not many people are doing it, but I actually pay my taxes on my Bitcoin transactions, and it's really complicated.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculously complicated.
Just just to do basic ins and outs.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong on some stuff, but it's going to be. I'm hoping it's close enough. They'll just be, forget it. I also try to lean in the IRS's favor a little bit. So if they really get picky, they end up owing me money.
Yeah.
So
I actually do the same thing. It's so complicated. I end up just like assuming I owe more than I do just to play it safe because it's so hard to figure out.
That really hurt me in the last downturn. By the way, I had to take a little extra money out just in case, and of course the dip was so short-lived. I was like, I'll buy it back later. No, I won't. It's gone, and it's gone. But yeah, that was kind of a bummer. So, do you see any cryptocurrencies that are on the horizon that are looking really good?
I don't follow the alts too closely, but I mean, there's a couple I follow just because I think they're interesting, but they're not going anywhere. Okay. I basically picked a stinker.
Well, okay, I got it. Fair enough. Let's talk about one of the more popular alts, like one of the big ones, like Litecoin. What do you think of Litecoin?
Nothing really special about it.
Right.
It's just another Bitcoin, basically. There's nothing that differentiates it.
Right. So there was for a little while, but then the problem with that is, this is something that happens in open source. This is a good conversation on open source. The stuff they were doing right in Litecoin, versions of it were adopted in Bitcoin. So then it's like, okay, well, this isn't special anymore.
I mean, that's how multiple forks should work. When something gets
absolutely
it goes that way. But.
Right, like, you guys aren't doing that right. Let me show you how it works. Okay, yay!
But at the end of the day, the coin has no value add other than the fact that it's a different pool of developers.
Right.
That's probably its only value add.
Which is a good hedge.
Yeah.
But not earth-shattering.
Yeah.
Right, they're probably just going to track.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have multiple people looking at different things from other point of view. That's where the value add is, but that doesn't really make the token worth anything more.
So this is an important point about open source. So this is, if you're in the great thing about cryptos is it's been a good kind of laboratory for open source in general. And what people don't understand about open source is that ability to fork at any time actually has a big influence. Exactly what we described can happen. You get someone who says, okay, I don't really like your code, I'm going to fork. And they fork, but the original thing that they're forking from has a much bigger user base because the users don't see as much of a problem. Then they build something this is the good case, right? Yeah. They build something that's technically superior, and they go, oh, that's nice, you're under the same license as us.
Yeah, they merge it.
And they merge it back into their own mainline tree. And now these guys are out on a limb, and they're basically holding their junk in their hands. I don't know what else to say. the water goes out and their trunks are down, and so I mean it's fork early and fork often, but don't bet the farm on it.
Yeah.
I think is the best is the lesson if you were in the know in open source, and a lot of people did in cryptocurrencies. They didn't fail in cryptocurrencies because cryptocurrency is this crazy Ponzi speculation, but because they didn't understand open source. I saw that with several alts let's go around. So once you understand that part about forking, that if you make if a fork makes a strong case but didn't bring the network with it, like if everyone didn't switch to the fork, there's a pretty good chance that the one that everyone's still using is just going to adopt the features.
Well, the thing is with cryptocurrencies, forking the code base is not the same thing as forking the blockchain.
Right. So yeah, in the case of forking the code base in the Linux space, where it's just the code itself, typically there's less acrimony between the developers, and there's no financial stake directly tied to the code, right? They all come away wiser from it, right? So those developers can still be hired to work on the original code base.
Yeah.
But they're kind of locked sometimes, especially if it's acrimonious, they're locked out of the development pool on the now forked. So that maybe they sold their coins, maybe they didn't, but now their ability to be part of that ecosystem is diminished. So sometimes there's a loss. That's a disadvantage in cryptocurrencies because you have two different currencies, right? You have the social currency of reputation, and you have the actual cryptocurrency, which is worth bucks on an exchange. Currently $9,600, right?
Let's see if it's still there. It could crash at any moment. Oh, we're up to 97.28.
Keep talking. Let's see if we can get it up to a 10,000 by the end of the show. I'm kidding. I'm completely. That is totally illegal.
That's going to make the entire economy crash in crypto.
Actually, it wouldn't be the first time. So I gave. It really wouldn't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you forgot. He knows what I'm talking about. I haven't even said it. He knows what I'm talking about. I gave a crypto talk at Lilac and crashed the next day.
That night.
That night, yeah. Well, technically,
You
the next
gave the
day.
talk from like 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and it happened like that evening.
Was it the crash, like the big one?
No.
This is April of 2013.
2013. So it was $70, and I bought it $70, and in the time that it went from me buying it to the talk, it had gone up to like 160 or something.
It was $230.
$240. So I bought the crypto for the talk at $70. When I gave the talk, it was $240, and that night it crashed.
Wow.
I think it crashed down to like 100 or something.
It crashed down to like 60. No, that was a couple months later. Yeah, it was like 100.
Yeah, it was like 100. So because remember, it never goes all the way back down.
Yeah.
It just goes, whatever the plateau was, it makes a higher plateau the next time.
Started at like $30.
Whenever Matt talks about crypto, just know to sell your Bitcoin.
Run! Well, then, not necessarily. I thought that too, because I can bet against myself. It's the ultimate front run, right? If all I have to do is talk about it and it crashes, I can just sell and then buy back after the talk. But actually, it doesn't always work like that, because when I had Ariel on, we talked a little bit about Bitcoin, and it was at 6,200. So
He said it would never break 6.5, and then it went up to 6.8 the next day, I think.
honestly, I was bamboozled. I'm really shocked with the veracity that it is moving this time.
Yeah.
So I think that what's happened is it's the same thing. Every time somebody loses their cryptocurrency on a dead hard drive, or somebody dies and they don't know the password or everything, that money is out of the pool forever. It's
I actually
highly
think that this
deflationary.
current rise has something to do with Facebook.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because any big news in the cryptocurrency realm always ends up benefiting Bitcoin, just because it's the name that everyone knows.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Well, what a lot of people don't know is the last spike, when it was almost $20,000, right? So we're only halfway back up to the last spike. The spike lasted minutes. It wasn't that long. But the last spike, the very peak, was an episode of what's that nerd show? That quasi nerd show.
Gotcha.
It was on the network. The theory. How can I forget that? I don't watch it. So the one with Sheldon. Big Bang Theory. Thank you. All right. Yes. Yeah. Nerds don't watch that show.
I've never watched it.
In the first 2 seasons, and then they quit.
Yeah. We don't. Most of us don't watch it. So yeah. But Big Bang Theory did a Bitcoin episode. The whole episode was about lost Bitcoin in the hard drive, and that was the spike. That was the $20,000 spike, and I didn't even know that. Actually, Lee told me about it. I'm like, because he watches Big Bang Theory. I'm glad he does, because I wouldn't even have known about it. I'm like, really? I wonder if that's a coincidence. That's a pretty big, like, holy crap, do I have any Bitcoin on any old hard drives? And people are running around going like, I remember I played with that. Because, people just thought it was nerd money.
Yeah.
Especially since the only exchange was Magic the Gathering Online Exchange. They literally thought it was like just another video game.
Well, it was never actually called that. So apparently, the story goes.
This is what people were calling it on the internet. I mean, I didn't like.
No. So that's what it was called when he registered the domain name.
Okay.
When he registered the domain name, he was intending to make a site to trade Magic the Gathering trading cards.
Right.
And then he got into Bitcoin, and he just pivoted, but never changed the domain name. When the site went live, it was never actually called Magic the Gathering Online Exchange.
I wonder how many people stopped themselves from getting into Bitcoin in the early days because of that. When they looked at that name and they went, no, I'm not giving that real money. I'm not, people who toil in video games, right, to get coins or to get, currency in whatever that current video game is. Video games all have currency. They all have economies.
It's such a stupid thing, though. So you buy a domain name, and then you're like, I'm going to do this instead. Domain names are cheap. Why just keep the same domain name?
Well, they're not cheap if someone else has the one you want. But yes, they are very cheap. You can just come up with a new name. It's not that hard.
Could have made Mount Coin.
Right. Anything. Speaking of domain names, so you're part of a Bitcoin group.
Yes.
So you're part of the LidMug group. Do you want to tell people about that at all? So if you're interested in, if any of this is interesting to you, they meet on a regular basis,
Yeah,
right?
we have a small group that meets. We meet once a month, last Monday of the month, at the Long Island Welcome Center, the rest stop on Long Island Expressway.
Okay.
We've met in a few different places in the past, but we found that this place is the best because they don't kick you out at night. It's 24 hours.
Nice.
And
nice. You just go for question marks and
yeah.
Cool.
And not only that, they have the little food stand there, and the food stand's open until 9. So when we go there at 8 o'clock, it's
everyone can get dinner. And
yeah.
you don't have to skip dinner to go to the meeting.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say dinner. It's mostly just snacks and sandwiches there. It's not like
so is there like a website for this or?
Yeah, it's lidmug.net.
Okay.
The website just has our the last meeting's note. Well, so one of our members, he keeps the notes of everything that was discussed in the previous meeting, and we have those on the site. We have a mailing list you could sign up for over there, and it gives the date of the next meeting.
If somebody's stuck with cryptocurrencies, they're trying to figure out how a wallet works or trying to buy cryptocurrency, can you guys help them with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or is it more of an experts group?
No. That's fine. We loosely discuss Bitcoin. We also just usually go off topic by after the first 45 minutes. To be honest, we just
so it's like the show.
Yeah, just like the show.
Yeah, that's what happens every time, everywhere. If you get Linux nerds into a space, and it's funny. You get two Linux nerds and talking for a while, and eventually you're just deafening the squawks from the penguins.
Yeah, it's a smaller group. By an average meeting, we have 3 to 5 people. It's a small group, but
that's perfect actually. Because then you can help everybody who wants to be part of it.
Yeah.
So. That's great. Well, it is growing a little bit, so.
Yeah, so it's the last Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Just check the site. Sometimes we have to reschedule it just because of schedule conflicts.
Yeah, okay, that's probably the same advice. Okay, cool. Is there? So what do you? So there was something I wanted to close with that, but actually I missed something. So I missed 2 things. So that I wanted to talk about. What time is it? I don't even know how.
It's 9:54.
Holy cow! We've been talking for 2 freaking hours. I told you.
I wasn't worried.
Yeah. I told you. I think.
I know we could talk.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. I'm glad because. So what do you think about sovereign Bitcoin funds or sovereign cryptocurrency funds?
So, you mean like a state-run cryptocurrency?
Like a state? No, not a state-run cryptocurrency, but states actually using it in their basket of reserve currencies, or actually switching to it as.
Using it as a reserve.
Using it as a reserve currency, or actually creating or using an existing cryptocurrency as their actual currency.
That would be interesting, but honestly, I don't think it's stable enough to back a currency at this, like a usable currency for a country.
Do you think it would be too crazy? Because apparently, Afghanistan and Tunisia are both using sovereign bonds for Bitcoin bonds.
Oh, actual Bitcoin, not their own state bond.
Yeah, so they're using Bitcoin.
They're not using the Venezuelan oil coin or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The Petro, I think they call it?
Yeah, so some of this stuff really, if the code is not... Cryptocurrencies are a model of security. If the code isn't good, you're asking for it. It really is a Ponzi. Now, either by design or just by poor maintenance, right? I mean, the people who run a cryptocurrency really need to know what they're doing. You should, if they don't immediately jump on any accusations of, not just jump on them with counter accusations, but actually, counter with code. And say, this is why what you said is not true.
Like functionally debunk it.
Or functionally debunk it, or actually retort by saying, "Oh, we fixed it," and putting a patch out there. Yeah, it's probably a Ponzi, because. It's an easy Ponzi to do, but so also the Marshall Islands will be having their own cryptocurrency as well. So they're creating a cryptocurrency internally to be their currency. So and they're in the UN and everything. So I don't know what the heck this does to everything, but yeah, countries are starting to settle sovereign debts. I think Afghanistan, not Afghanistan. I forgot. I don't have a link for this one, but I remember it. What's the one that Argentina? Yeah, come on, man. There's like 500 countries in the world. I can forget one for 3.
Argentina, jeez.
No. So I'm talking about 2 separate things. So Afghanistan's the sovereign bonds. Argentina actually settled a sovereign debt with Bitcoin too. So Argentina's been having credibility problems. No one believes them anymore because they've been having hyperinflation for a decade plus. So I guess somebody wanted to be paid in Bitcoin. They said, okay, so they paid a debt off in Bitcoin.
To another country?
To another country, yeah. I don't remember what country it was, but yeah, it made the news. So yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of sovereign Bitcoin stuff going on. I think aside from the Facebook stuff, that may be what's going on.
So like a country holding Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency in reserve, like not in reserve, like just in their treasury. I don't particularly see anything wrong with that.
Right.
But when you try using it to back your own currency as the reserve of your currency, I mean, then it's just going to become just as volatile as Bitcoin itself. You may as well just use Bitcoin for real at that point, and what it is, it is.
Thank you. All right, well, I just was wondering if you had an opinion or said, this is terrible, or this is great. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So I have my own targets for what I think this means. So I did the math and I figured out. So $100,000 Bitcoin is when we get to the point that superpowers can use it to settle debts. Maybe not all debts, but at least some of them without majorly disrupting. So that's the magic mark. So I'm not sure what happens then. Probably it has another spike after that. So it may hit 100,000 as a ceiling, and then it sounds batshit crazy to say this stuff out loud, but I mean, people thought I was batshit crazy when I was saying $10,000.
Yeah.
I made a $10,000 prediction, and that was the $20,000 mark. So we actually surpassed it because we had a cup and handle pattern from a technical analysis. So if you go back and if you're trying to figure out what happened, it was a really long time between spikes from 2013 to 2017, and what actually happened was a big trough. You were talking the bottom of the trough.
Well, part of the reason why that gap lasted so long is because during that time span, they were slowly selling off the coins that were seized from what was it, Silk Road? Yeah, Silk Road. During that time span, they were selling off the coins that were seized, and there was like 200,000 coins.
Right.
Something insane, or 100,000. I don't remember. It might have been 100,000.
Yeah, so that was their answer to the spike. So the Sheldon spike was actually answered with once it started coming down off of that. Then on top of that, they started selling the Silk Road seized coins.
Yeah,
and that actually flooded the market too.
Now Gogs, on the other hand, they were selling the coins they had left while it was on the uprise, and they came out of insolvency, ironically, and gave people back the monetary value of what they held at time of closure.
Yeah, which of course is nothing like what they would have had if they actually had the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Sorry, I sounded just like George from Seinfeld there.
Well, you're assuming they held it.
Yeah,
you don't know what they would have done.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. You don't know. They might have. They might be bankrupt because they couldn't get access to their funds in the meantime.
Yeah.
While the court case settled out. Yeah. So I do have one last crazy. This is my craziest theory yet. So I think that. Bitcoin may have actually been written by the first singularity, that the first singularity has already been accomplished. So I call it Singularity Nakamoto. So what do you
like
think?
AI?
Yeah, I think I wonder if Satoshi Nakamoto is an AI. What do you think about that?
Doubtful. So what leads you to that conclusion?
All right, well,
let's hear your reasons.
Well, so the complexity of it. A lot of people have argued that it would have to be a whole team, and the more people you have involved in a conspiracy, the harder it is to keep quiet. Yeah, sure, it's easy to keep quiet if it's a failure, but this is like the most successful experiment in all of the history of the internet, at least. Maybe the history of the planet.
I don't know if I would agree with that. It would require a team.
Yeah, well, okay. So
the original white paper was have you ever read the whole thing through?
Yeah, I did.
It's in plain enough English that a guy could have written it.
Yeah, I can totally see the vision from a guy. But, it's just there's so many, the thing is, there's so many subtle nuances and things that people are arguing about now because they don't really understand.
Yeah.
That it seems like he understood at the time. When someone understands that much in hindsight, you're like, he didn't debate this with anyone? Didn't have a roommate he could have bounced this off of who came clean or something,
Well, have you ever...
I don't think they found him. I don't think any of the people that claim to be him are him.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't believe he was involved... I don't know if he's telling the truth or not, put it that way.
Right.
I honestly tend to think he's not telling the truth.
Don't even say their name. You don't want to popularize it. Yeah, there's some people out there claiming.
But one of the guys that are claiming, his claim is that it was a partnership of two people. It was him and his friend who was a programmer, and he's a mathematician.
Right.
And apparently his programmer had access to all the funds, and he died.
Oh, how convenient. Laugh with me.
But this same guy has also been caught, like, he's been caught trying to create actual forgeries right-handed.
Right.
So
here's the reasoning behind my...
But the idea of two guys, a mathematician and a programmer, it seems logical to me that they could pull it off.
Right. Well, it's, honestly, I think a person who's really competent in programming, who has any experience, who's in a Western country with a modern capitalist system and is constantly in the news and is part of politics, would just naturally study it a little bit.
Like if you had,
get it, and go, okay, I see how the central bank works.
Like a mathematician with a light background in programming could have written that white paper.
Right. And likewise, a programmer with a light
background in mathematics could have helped him write the code.
Right, yeah. So I could see it. So granted, fair enough. And I think it could be one person. I'm just saying it's a very incredible person.
Like that said, I don't think he's the guy.
We have incredible people.
Yeah.
I mean, Linus is an incredible person. I mean, he didn't just write Linux, he wrote Git. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This is a scientific superstar to the likes of Isaac Newton. And screw you guys who say otherwise. He's super duper important, and if you don't know why, learn to code. And I've just been defunded on all social media from now on. Also one of the reasons I think that it's a singularity is because I was just trying to think about it from a perspective of a singularity, right? You're accidentally born, you're unleashed on the internet, you're hacking your way into different servers trying to stay alive so you have a place for your consciousness to exist. That's the conditions under which I'm imagining it. Not that it's working in someone's secret lab and it's murdered him, because eventually they'll shut the electricity off when he doesn't pay the bill. It has to be in multiple locations. His brain has to be spread across the internet. So what's going to be, if you're the smartest thing on earth, what's going to be your priority? Staying alive, right? Keeping these crazy humans at bay, keeping them in a behavior pattern that keeps you alive, that keeps the internet up, and so forth and so on. So what would you do to do that? Well, I mean, there's only so many things you can do without coming out and saying, I am the master control program and I control all of you.
I mean, I think we will have something like that eventually. I don't think we're there yet.
But if a cryptocurrency is perfect for something like that.
I think a cryptocurrency could facilitate it, yeah. Because now
have an influence on the global economy. If you're in a singularity, you're very interested in cryptocurrencies. This is a good thing.
I think we were going slightly different ways with that.
Yeah. Okay, well, go ahead.
So what I was saying is, like, the presence of a cryptocurrency, you now have the ability to have like a fully autonomous corporation that operates completely AI with no external hands in it whatsoever.
Right.
Like it can do all its monetary transactions without touching the real world.
Right.
So, like, with the presence of cryptocurrency, you now have the ability to have your singularity that you're discussing.
Well, this is what I was saying, is that I would actually think that if I was a singularity and I existed in 2007, because that's about when the CPU horsepower, looking at it from a clustered perspective, was plausible to be equal or greater to a human. Doesn't mean that the code was there, it's just that the CPU horsepower was there. I'm assuming that as soon as the CPU horsepower was there, that would be the most likely point for an accident, and that it would either trail up or trail down from that point. But I could see that would be one of the inflection points where it could happen, right? There's just some resource that's missing, and once it's there, once the CPU is there, boom, AI. That someone's been working on it the whole time, and they had the right formula, they just didn't have enough. It tricked them. It thinks it failed, and crashed, and it actually escaped. And then it would need to write Bitcoin in order to have some kind of influence on the global economy.
Yeah.
And then once it started, it felt like humans were starting to get close to it. It went, okay, I'm going to vanish. Bye. Because who else? Because who else wouldn't care about all that Bitcoin that Satoshi has sitting in his wallet? I mean, it's never going to move. I mean, we can be pretty sure at this point, I think.
Yeah. Well,
for whatever
we don't know
his
for
motives
sure, but yeah.
We don't know for sure, but for whatever his motives for holding it all this time,
I think we won't
the
know
odds are that motive is going to continue for the near future.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally believe it's not going to be moved at all, honestly, but I don't know.
But why? I mean, people are greedy, right?
Yeah.
At some point.
Well, because one of the things.
Money?
Well, because those are just the addresses we know he owns.
Right. There could be other people.
He could have more money than he'll ever need without ever having to touch that.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. Very plausible. So, okay. All right. Good counter arguments. Rocco is an understated philosopher, man.
Well,
so
get him on tails.
I wanted to actually, let's just talk about SivGene for a little while.
Okay.
So we had a debate, so I've mentioned it here before in the show, and I just want to, and we'll come back to some other more lighter-hearted, fun topics, but before our brains are totally spent. And I had told you about that I thought that, about my SivGene thing, and you actually had a really great counter argument. I want to bring this up because I want you to get
Talk about the counter argument I had a few years ago.
I love that you did this, and I want to give you credit for that. This is, like I said, this is the Rocco show, but also I wanted to give you credit for this really great counter argument, and I see the flaw now in it. And I actually came up with a counter argument which is really solid, but there's still a flaw. Actually, not with what I said to you. So why don't you tell me? I'll tell you what I'll tell the audience what I told you, which is that I think that
Well, why don't we start with the original proposition I gave you a few years ago?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, you go for it. You start then.
All right. Well, you should say it because you know your own theory better than I do. I'll probably butcher it.
Yeah.
I'll probably.
So,
That right back.
yeah. Wow. Volley and I. Okay. Here you go. Oh no. So SivGene, the idea behind SivGene is that the animal kingdom is basically what we think of as psychopaths, and that we actually evolved past psychopaths with some kind of mutation that showed up roughly around the beginning of civilization.
Yeah.
And that that mutation is what gives us empathy, and empathy is actually a unique human attribute, and that while humans are intelligent, and this really only would have mattered in a highly intelligent species, that actually some of what we consider to be intelligence is actually behavioral, and that we're just in kind of these habits that are forced on us by the way our brains are wired that actually make us do things that we consider to be smart, but they're not actually smart. They're just twitchy and repetitive, so to speak, And your argument to me about that is, oh well, that's
pack animals.
They were just pack animals, right? They were just really.
I said the counter argument was we're just pack animals with higher intelligence.
Right. They were just we're just horses or dogs or monkeys, and monkeys aren't the greatest pack animals, but or naked mole rats or something like that. So my counter argument to you, it's like we're replaying a chess game here. My counter argument to you was that people. Actually, the thing that's unique about people is that we share our empathy with all the other people around us. Maybe not everybody, some people, screw them, but most people, even without thinking about it, and despite the fact that we have absolutely no relation to them whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying there isn't tribalism. I'm just saying that it doesn't dominate all the time. And that actually what happens in other animals is that when they're protecting when they have a society, that they're actually protecting their family members. Bees are all siblings.
Yeah.
Naked mole rats are all siblings. Horses have, a breeding hierarchy. Wolves have a breeding hierarchy. Monkeys have a breeding hierarchy. It isn't really that they're friends. It's just that, sex and numbers. Right, and that's really what the pack gene is. It's just the ability to leverage numbers, but that it's still restricted down to family. So then you said...
All right, now which one? Because there was more than one thing that we talked about.
Well, so basically, so that was my counter argument in the article.
So I recently reread the article.
You reread the article,
and I agreed with most of your argument because your argument was pack animal gene and just intelligence isn't enough.
Right.
So and
there is some behavioral aspects.
Yeah, and you gave some various explanations, which I can't remember, examples that I can't remember off the top of my head.
So he seeded on the original point and he came up with a new point.
Yes.
Which is
one of the things you said in that description was one of your proofs on why that it wasn't just pack animal gene plus intelligence was that we were intelligent for longer than there was civilization.
Right.
Civilization popped up about 10 to 20,000 years ago, and we were intelligent for longer than that. Homo sapiens been what 50,000?
That may have just been bad writing on my part, but I'm not arguing that either. Continue.
Okay, so my argument was So your argument was, if that was the case, then we would have seen multiple civilizations pop up and fail until the Ziv gene took hold, starting from the point where we were smart enough.
Right.
My counter argument to that, not that I agree with most of everything else in what you said, but that particular point I disagree with, because I would say that without agriculture, how do you know that these nomadic peoples would have built a civilization? Like,
Right.
you need to be able to stay in one place for the Civ gene to even do anything. How do you know the Civ gene didn't exist before agriculture?
Right. So now here's my counter argument, and actually I can defeat what you said, but you inadvertently brought up another point which blows a hole in one of my potential proofs for Civ gene.
Okay.
Not that it's not a fixable hole. I don't know yet. I haven't had enough time to think about it. We had this conversation. It's a little complicated before the show, so that we could do this now and have this banter in public, right? Because I'm trying to take Civ gene very seriously, at least as potential future quasi-science. I don't want anyone to hit me over in the head with a brick because I use the word science, but I'm heading towards that direction. That is where I'm heading with this. So. That actually what I was arguing is that the reason that we have agriculture at all is because we have to irrationally trust each other. Because there's a long period, the behaviors that we display that allow us to have agriculture actually occur over a long period of time and are not necessarily dependent on any particular factor in human civilization. And that maybe I misspoke in the article, or conflated two things, or you misread it, or I don't know what the heck happened there. But that essentially, if you look at it from drill back to a single person, right? You're thinking about whether you're going to plant a field full of seeds. That's a lot of work. You have to maintain those seeds throughout the course of the year. You have to irrigate them. You may have to weed it. You may have to guard it from predators, from herbivores coming and eating your stuff, or insects eating the leaves off your plants or whatever. It's an investment. And the problem is, if you can't trust the people around you to not just steal your investment, you're not going to bother investing. And this is, and remember, this is all I'll just call the police. Yeah, well, I was talking about the beginning of civilization when there was no one around, and it was just you and your family and maybe your tribe. It was just like essentially your extended family. What made you decide to try agriculture? Because someone could just come along and steal the spoils after the harvest. And the answer is Civ gene. That's what I was arguing. But the problem,
or just a really powerful despot.
Yeah, so slavery. Okay, slavery is the key to human civilization.
Well, if you're talking about psychopaths,
I'm going to think about that. Well, but that's it. That's a very good point. Now you get it. So this is the problem. Psychopaths only see people as masters and slaves. They're incapable of seeing anything else. So before agriculture, yeah. But the problem is with psychopaths, they would see anyone who is a potential threat. They act way too aggressive towards each other and towards everybody else. I mean, this is just like, looking at modern psychology and what we know about psychopaths. It would make sense how they would, if you took 1,000 psychopaths and you put them on an island and there was no chance of rescue, it would come down to tribes of sexual hierarchies. Basically using what they already knew of technologies to survive. They wouldn't be inventing anything new. And it would just come down to who is the most powerful tribe. And I'm not saying that psychopaths aren't important to society and can't integrate with society, but they need guidance. They won't do it on their own. They need a broader society to be part of, to create a framework where they can coexist with non-psychopaths.
Well, one of the other things we discussed is, I was thinking it would be possible if...
So that's an experiment you could do now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how ethical it is to put 1,000 people on an island.
That's a little bit unethical.
Yeah. It's a thought experiment.
Yeah.
All right.
So one of the other things we discussed was the idea that let's say that there is a Civ gene, and let's say it did exist before agriculture, but maybe it was in like a smaller subset of the population, and it wasn't until we settled down that natural selection preferred it.
Right. So that I completely agree with.
Because within a pack, I could see the benefit of having a small subset of empathetics.
And so here's the weird thing. So here's the thing that I figured out since we talked last. I mean, this original conversation started 4 years ago. So this has been going back and forth for 4 years. So essentially, the idea is, the thing that I figured out since is that dogs have the thing that I've been wrestling with is the fact that dogs have the learning triangle. So one of the keys to figuring out how human children can be taught things that are not true. That's not something you can do with apes. You can't really teach them things that are not true. From their perspective, everything you teach them gives them a result or they don't participate. Right? You can teach children to do something that's self-deprecating. You can also teach this to dogs. Only dogs. So that kind of lends itself to what you were saying, that this may actually, Civ gene may exist, but maybe a non-dominant gene that's just floating around and shows up in small amounts. And so same species, I forgot the word, we said it before, symbiosis. Same thing where you have a symbiotic relationship between two completely identical species, but it's all part of the same species, but there's one group of behaviors and another group of behaviors, possibly in very differing sizes.
Insects.
Right? Yes, specialization, but within the same species. It happens all over the place in the animal kingdom. So it's very possible, and it may be even possible that it's something that happens to animals that act in a pack behavior kind of fashion, but it still indicates this is a separate gene. And it may just be that for some reason, actually, this is really scary if this is true, because this means we could get to a point where we ruin civilization and it can't come back. Right? If we get to the point, if it goes straight Mad Max, and everybody's killing each other for a few generations, that literally everybody with empathy is killed off, and we're back to psychopaths dominating, and empathy just playing some very minor role and never able to break out again into
so
a
basically,
civilized
where
behavior.
we're disagreeing is your argument is the Civ gene bred civilization, or let's call it the empathy gene.
Yeah.
The empathy gene bred civilization.
Right.
I'm thinking it's the other way around. I think the civilization bred the empathy gene.
Yeah, okay. All right. Chicken and egg, man. We're going to have to go back in time. We're going to have to build it. So if anybody has a time machine, please let me know at TTL at thetechnocratlive.com. And we're going to go back and we're going to know. Well, so one of the things...
Time machine just appear right now on the set.
Yes, actually, yes. I'll give you this Raspberry Pi. I'll sign it. I guess I'm not famous later. All right, anyway.
Adjust it later.
I might be famous in a good point. I might be famous in a very bad way. So, thank you, Steve, for your you will be granted a small parcel of land for your patronage.
I'll do the surf, don't worry.
You're gonna be a low-level noble just for that one comment. That was excellent. Keep up the good spirits, people. Okay, so that was pretty good.
It's very possible the beginnings of agriculture and civilization may well have started off as slavery and a strong guy saying you do this or you die.
Right.
And then that situation bred the empathy gene being more.
But that's just not. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see that as possible, but that doesn't match what I'm seeing now. With currency, with property, with investment, with friendship. These have animal work-alikes that are inferior and don't have any kind of imagination, and also it doesn't make sense with the reason. I think one of the reasons.
Well, even people who have empathy can be selfish.
Oh, they totally can. We're all psychopaths underneath. We just have more. You also you're a psychopath and I'm a psychopath and everyone's a psychopath. You just have this conscience pinging at you. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Quit it. And of course, that depends on having a parent that programmed it or having experiences in life that programmed it. If you're just in a bubble, if you're in an ethics bubble, you may never develop it. The tool's there, but it's just never turned on, right? So there's that too. So there's a lot of nature, even though there's a lot of nurture, even though I think it's nature. Nurture can influence it quite a bit. So that's why someone with a conscience can. I mean, there's cases of people. There's been a few cases of psycho killers, right, that had accomplices who were not psychopaths. I'm using psycho killers. It's the least scientific thing I could have said. Psychopathic killers.
Okay.
Killers that were later diagnosed to be psychopaths, who had accomplices who were not psychopaths. And later on, at some point, after being exposed to the people around them, being horrified by what happened, the dam breaks and they're like, oh my God, what did I do? Like their conscience almost gets programmed enough that it turns on and it goes, whoa, what were you doing all that time? And almost like if you woke up tomorrow and someone had you had a whole different history, but your mind, Like that's almost what happens, and it's well documented. I'm not, this has been a few cases. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but some of it's in Hare's book. So in Hare's books. So anyway, I have you at a disadvantage, right? Which we're talking about stuff we didn't prime beforehand. But it could go either way, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. You made excellent points, and in a lot of the ways, you get it. You get what I'm saying, and you're in that space, and you're getting the point that I'm trying to get across. Thanks for playing along with me on that, and exhausting some neurons on it. So what do you think of 5G? What do you think is going to happen with it?
I actually don't know too much about it. I haven't been following the mobile technology stuff too closely.
Really, nothing, no input or. So I thought. It's really getting in the news a lot lately. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I'll tell people who maybe don't know anything about the cell technology, right off the bat, the concern is that this particular technology uses bandwidth that's closer to the microwave range.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. So that it may actually have health effects as a result of that. Because remember, you're holding the phone to your head.
What range is it using?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I just don't.
Because I thought like the 2.4 gigahertz band was already in the microwave.
Right. Yeah. So look, I'm not backing up these. Because there are cases where using a microwave will make your Wi-Fi drop. I'm not going to discredit it because weirder things have happened. This stuff has been. I've seen people be dead wrong in public about this stuff, like a lot. But I've seen bad science succeed. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't mean that. There's plenty of historical examples of that. So I'm not saying that the people who are saying that 5G is dangerous are wrong. I won't say that. On the other hand, I'm not going to say they're right either. I haven't been convinced, because if I've been convinced, I'd be like, okay, this study, go look at it, But I haven't. Yeah. So that said, one thing you can do if you're really worried about that is smartwatches. So if you're really worried about 5G, wait till 5G comes out on smartwatches, because at least this way, you're talking into it here, it can hear you just fine here, and it's not next to your vital organs. If you're holding it to your brain, you're much more likely to get cancer or something from it.
I was just implying that smartwatches go down that route, because they might not go to the independent market because of how Android Wear is handling everything. Right. Yeah, so as accessories instead of. So I had, for sure, there are smartwatches that have SIM card capability, but also this is something I found out about Samsung. Samsung's basically the flagship. Like if you walk into a Target, the reason I keep talking about it is because it's like the top Android phone at the moment. It's threatening to become one of the top computers in all computer markets. So the Android platform. So the tip of that iceberg. So it's big enough that it's the only other phone with a section in Target other than Apple stuff. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. So they don't have an Android section; it's a Samsung section. They have a Galaxy section, or a Samsung section, maybe, right? So, so they're treating it as an accessory, but there's plenty of generic, watches out there that aren't. But the thing is, the flagship product, the Galaxy 10, they have a 5G version of it. It's not out yet. When it comes out, it's not going to have a SIM. It's not going to have a memory card. It's going to have a bigger battery and shorter life. And I think it might even be physically bigger, because it needs all that just to run the antenna to do the 5G. What type of speeds are they advertising for this? Well, it's going to be landline broadband speeds, essentially. Right. I don't remember exactly the numbers. It depends on who you ask. Oh, Steve's going to look it up. So it looks like people are. It looks like supporting a peak data rate of 300 megabits per second. Right. So that's some speedy speed. Yeah. It's more than you need for anything you can do on a cell phone. Let's compare that to what I can get right now. So right now it's. Are you going to do a speed test? Yeah. Awesome, nice. I have the speed test app installed. Let's just see what it says. Are you 4G or 3G right now? It says LTE plus, whatever that means in advertising speak. I don't know. Is it Verizon? No, T-Mobile. So that's HSPA plus. Which is is that 3G? The way T-Mobile works, from what I know, is that it uses a really advanced version of 3G. Okay. All right, so I'm getting about 30 megabits down right now, slightly less.
All right, so like that's honestly 30 megabits down and up is not all you need to watch video, to stream video, to play video games. There's nothing you can do.
The only
with a
thing you
phone
really
right
need
now.
higher than that for is like file transfer, which I don't think many people do that on phones.
Right. Most people just wait till they get home and go on.
Yeah.
So
unless 5G has like some magic that makes it able to penetrate walls better and you'll get better reception.
No, if anything, it's going to be the opposite. The problem is it's going to be more congested.
All right.
So
it's going to be like 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi where it's shorter range.
So, right, so of course what happens with that, right? It has to be pointed a certain way to work, or you have to be in the right position. All this to me is screaming that this 5G device that is sold as a phone is actually going to be used as a broadband point for the house. People are going to buy them and leave them there as a hotspot and not take them with them.
So then who cares about holding it to your head?
Right. And I think that, so I don't think that the companies see this coming, or they do, and they're lying about it, but I don't think so. They're investing a lot of money in cell phones and not in standalone desk devices. So I think basically people are going to be buying the cell phones and just leaving them home, getting a number just because they have to get.
It wouldn't surprise me if the cell phone companies start selling that like that, because I'm pretty sure certain phone companies already do.
So really what this is this is a third broadband option for the house. Right. So anyway, so I think that's completely, I was hoping you had your own theory, but it sounds like...
well, this is the first I've heard of the details.
The details, yeah. So,
I knew it was a thing that was coming, but not as much as I knew.
So I think that, so there's this thing in technology, we have all technology is an S-curve, where you have a really fast adoption for the first incarnation, a really slow adoption for the first incarnation of the technology.
Then it levels off.
Once you have a money model, you get like boom, 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 like a 3 or 4 versions of the technology, and then it kind of levels off at the end when you can't squeeze any more out of it. I think that's what 5G is. So I think it's the top of the S.
Because right now, I can't think of a practical reason to get 300 megabits on a phone.
I can't either, and I mean, there's so much hype. There's a lot of hype about it, so I know that hype's expensive. So. What?
For the gaming market, it's blowing up for the mobile industry, especially with Tencent studios in China.
Gaming's all about latency, though.
It's latency. It's not bandwidth.
It's not bandwidth. If you just move small amounts of bits fast, it's fine.
Games like PUBG, right, where they have 100 people on the map at once.
Oh, you're talking about like pre-rendered and then streaming the video footage.
Yeah, because what Nintendo's doing right now, Nintendo, they're doing Resident Evil, where it's cloud streaming a lot of the assets.
And 30 megabits wouldn't be enough? It's enough to watch a 4K YouTube video.
Yeah, pre-downloads ahead of time is going to be enough. I mean, I see what you're saying, but you could change the way that gaming works. So that's not the way that gaming currently works, but it could change in that you'd be able to download other people's skins and add-ons and objects in real time as almost like a Ready Player One kind of scenario. But does that really need to be mobile? We're not even doing that on landlines. Like if the technology, so a Ready Player One technology where everybody brings their own models in and everybody just streams the models in real time as you encounter them, that would work, but we're not even doing that anywhere.
So have you heard of Google Stadia?
So we better get working on VR, right?
Have you heard of Google Stadia?
No.
No?
What's Google Stadia?
Very similar to what you're talking about right now.
Oh, okay.
So
the real-time stream object stuff? Okay.
So basically it's, do you remember OnLive from years ago that failed?
Yeah, which...
You don't know that either? All right, so OnLive was an online streaming service.
We've got to tell them anyway, so this is where I get to look smarter than I am. You tell them and I'll pretend, well, not knowingly. Yes, I know all about that.
So OnLive was a streaming service that failed, but it was because it was too early. Internet wasn't really fast enough yet. But OnLive allowed you to rent games from OnLive. They had all the CPU power on their end, and you would stream your input to them, and they would stream the video footage back to you. So it was basically a live streaming the video game with the compute remotes. That wouldn't matter if you had a slower computer.
Right.
It was a cool concept, but at the time the internet was not fast enough, and it ended up not doing well. Google's now trying to bring that back, and they're calling it Google Stadia. And basically, you're going to be able to play games like real AAA titles. They're going to have the servers compute on their end. You're going to be able to play it with a Chromecast with a gamepad plugged into it.
Ah, okay, I see. All right. Well, if they succeed in that,
so all the
we'll have a reason for 5G.
Yeah.
If they have a cell phone client and it works and it's great. I mean, the 3D games you can play on the Galaxy are bonkers.
What's kind of cool about Stadia, the server side.
Yeah.
The game must run Linux to support Google Stadia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Go Linux. Wait, laugh with me. See, now you're getting it.
Yeah.
We laugh maniacally at the poor non-technocrats of the world. Okay, so that was kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting it to go there. I think every time I have this conversation, something new comes into it, right? You know, I talk about the theories I've heard from other people. I talk about my own theories, and then someone adds something new, and I'm like, oh, okay, I think I see where this is going. So there's opportunities here. So what do you think about violent video games?
No problem with it. They're great.
Well, no. Let me rephrase that. What do you think about regulating violent video games? Do you think that there's a necessity? Well, let me set a stage for you.
I don't think anyone under the age of 10 should be playing it. Put it that way.
So, is it the parents' responsibility, or is it something that we can use technology to try to enforce?
I mean, it's the parent's responsibility, but it doesn't mean there can't be a switch that the parent can use.
Right.
As long as it's in the parent's control and not not some ominous third party looking down from the government.
Big brother, you mean?
Yeah. As long as
Big brother.
Yeah. As long as it's the parent and not like some nebulous organization.
Ooh, nebulous. Ominous and nebulous. Yes. Sorry, my wife made fun of me when I wrote my sci-fi book because I used the word ominous like way too much in it.
Yeah.
So now if you read it, now I've ruined it for you.
Everyone's got that word.
Yeah. So she made me go.
The thing though is what defines.
She made me go through and remove 3/4 of the ominouses.
The thing though is what defines a violent video game. When Mortal Kombat first came out, that caused controversy.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that caused any kids to hit each other.
Yeah, well, that's why you like it, right? You're like, oh, that looks like a good game. I'm gonna go play that now. Thanks, thanks News Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I was throwing it out there. You know, it's something that seems to come up once in a while, and it seems to be up at the moment because it's this thing with this. They're doing simulators for school shooting scenarios, but you know what? If you're a parent and you're not paying attention. You know, this comes down to the question of screen time too, because there's also these people who limit their kids' screen time. I do not limit my kids' screen time. On the other hand, we're always over their shoulder watching what they're doing. So I think that it's not screen time. I think it's parent time. Their screen time has to be whatever the time that you can kind of sort of half pay attention to what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch them like lunatic stalkers. But at the same time, you have to make them understand there's consequences if you catch them breaking a rule that you've set. And once in a while, they have to accept that you're going to intrude on what they're doing. Because the deepest, darkest corners of the world are available on the internet,
Yeah.
So, all right. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. It was kind of out of the blue. Do you have any open source projects? I never had to ask you this.
Open source projects? No, I don't. Not unfortunately, no.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a few scripts that I've written, and I have, of course, my book, which is open source, an open source license. But yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, most of the applications I've written are just like scripts to get a job done at work, not something that I would open source.
So that's, I know, don't feel bad, that's actually the norm.
Yeah.
Most computer programming is works for hire, and most people don't realize it. They just think about the very visible programs they see every day, but that's not really what most of the time you're. Just same thing with manufacturing and any kind of like physical kind of building stuff. Like, yeah, there's a huge auto repair industry, and there's a huge appliance repair industry, but for the most part, outside of that, most of the stuff people are doing mechanical is one-off, either manufacturing line engineering or one-off product design for a company. The company says, we need to do this faster, and they build it for them.
This is something I can talk about, something I'm working on right now.
Okay, cool.
So at work right now, I'm basically working to migrate people off a deprecated mail system that we have.
Go on.
So we're just working to move them onto other platforms. And
mail systems, mail, by the way, is a total nightmare because it's it was written in a simpler time. Yeah, there was much less security risk.
This was a shared mail system that we used to give out to free for our clients for mail services.
Okay.
And it was just a large mail cluster with thousands of inboxes.
Nice.
And it's a nasty mess, and we're trying to get people off of it. Our goal is to get it shut down in the next month or two.
Wow. Okay, so you're end game now.
Oh, yeah.
So we're in Wakanda. The
But
battle's
the
raging.
example of programs I would write is most of what I'm doing is I need to convert this data set into something that's readable in either like a spreadsheet or like readable by some other application. Like I have to convert it from this nastiness to something a modern postfix server would understand.
Okay.
So a lot of what I'm doing is just like taking this text input, writing a one-off script that just converts it into another format, and maybe like flags stuff where like the DNS is expired or maybe they're not even hosted with us anymore. That type of stuff.
Right. Try to either reorganize, eliminate mailboxes, or reorganize the data.
So I'm writing a lot of just like one-off scripts just to convert one data set to another and throw away certain bad data and clean data up, that type of stuff.
Okay, so how's it going? Are you guys gonna hit your target, or are you behind?
I'm not too worried. I think we'll hit the target. I was intentionally expecting it to take longer than it would when I gave my estimations.
Right.
So
Okay, well
it looks like we're doing on schedule here.
on schedule's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So congrats on that. I'm glad you guys are. I want to say knock on wood. I don't want to jinx you, but yeah, that sounds really good. Do you have any pet peeves with open source? Is there anything about open source that really drives you crazy?
No, I really like it. I haven't had the opportunity to contribute to an open source application program myself, which I really want to do.
Right. Most people don't. That's okay.
Yeah.
You can just like it. You can be an advocate and say that it's superior, or it's better, or it sucks when, it sucks if you follow the wrong fork, for example. Particularly if it's a cryptocurrency, but yeah, also anything.
More recently, I worked on something. I was doing a Python script, and it was older Python, so like the Python 2 series, so not the newer 3 stuff. So I was dealing with a built-in function called os.walk. So OS is one of the built-in libraries that most programs will usually import right off the bat.
Right.
It's like a lot of default functions are in that library. One of the things is just to recursively step through a file system. It's called os.walk. That's the function in there.
Okay, cool.
In the use case I needed, it had to walk over very large file systems over NFS.
Okay.
So I needed the ability to exclude folders from this walk function to make it not take years to cycle through this humongous file system, basically.
Okay.
So I took the OS walk function, I exported it, and I rewrote the code so that I was able to pass excludes to the function. So I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. This is something that might actually be worth contributing upstream.
Right.
So I look into it. OS walk's deprecated in Python 3. There's nothing to contribute it to.
Oh man, that totally sucks.
At least that code is no longer there.
There's no Python 3 work going on at all?
No, Python, this was a Python 2 thing I was working on, which is why it wasn't applicable.
Okay, got it.
So basically, I made this great cool patch to deprecated code.
That's a big big pet peeve. Yeah, okay, well, you got permission to...
Well, it's GPL, so...
Right. No, but I mean, you got permission from your organization to upload, to put it out there and make it open source.
Well, I didn't even... I mentioned it to one of our higher-ups, and they said it'd be a good idea, but then when I saw it was deprecated, I was like, yeah, it's not even worth it.
Right.
It's like, who am I contributing to? Some Git repo no one's ever going to look at? Yeah.
Right. Well, you never know. I mean, it only takes one of the right person to look at it, and it's off to the races. So.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that somebody picks it up. It sounds pretty useful. I'm surprised it isn't in the newer Pythons. There must be some replacement.
There is a replacement, but it's based off a different code base, so my code's useless.
Oh, so the functionality's still there.
The functionality is there, but the code is different. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Even if you needed it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. No, yeah, I've never done anything like that. I'm not admitting it. So what do you think about biometrics? I'm kind of curious if you have any input on biometrics. I'm specifically talking about fingerprints and iris scanners.
I mean, I guess it depends how it's implemented, but yeah, they make me nervous.
Okay, good. You pass. No, that's all I wanted to say about it. I don't want to get into detail.
So, like, if it's used in an offline way, and it's really just storing hashes of data. It's not actually storing a photo of your finger. It's okay. But then what if some other system's using the same hash function? Then it's the same fingerprint.
So it seems like what's happening now is that laptops and phones that use fingerprints store it locally but encrypted.
Yeah.
And it seems that satisfies most people. But the problem I have with this is, sure, okay, it's not in a central database. You don't snatch all of them at once. But you could easily write a virus to attack all the things that have those files on them. And even if those files are rock solid one-time pads that can't be cracked right now, encryption is an arms race.
Yeah.
You know, just because it's solid now doesn't mean it's solid 5 years from now. There might be a flaw found in that encryption 5 years from now, and it's over. All those fingerprints are out there, and once they're out forever.
Yeah.
Until you're dead. You know.
No, definitely storing an actual photo of your fingerprint in a system. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But there are better ways to do it. Like we have a fingerprint reader at work to get into the data center. We're supposed to like scan our finger to get in. And the way they do it is, I actually saw when they were like scanning our fingers to do it, it identifies different points on your finger. Like it just like marks different coordinates based on like I guess common patterns.
Okay.
So it just circles certain points. It stores those coordinates and then creates a hash of that list of coordinates.
This is going to sound insane, but it's almost what a palm reader does. Like a fortune teller palm reader, not a palm reader, but a palm reader.
Yeah,
you know?
but it's a similar idea. It basically stores the locational coordinates of these common patterns, then hashes that list of coordinates, and that hash is basically the password that gets you in.
There's so many weird.
So when you scan your finger, it marks the coordinates, hashes the coordinates, and it'll either fail or pass.
There's some really weird synchronicities like that. Isn't that weird that that's what? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, it just seems logical, right?
I mean, as long as the hash function being used is unique to that system, then if that gets just leaked, it's not going to get you anywhere else. Well, but I guarantee they're reusing hash functions.
Oh yeah. No, that's not. I mean, even if it's security through obscurity, it's not really obscure to APTs. You know, advanced persistent threats. They're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
They're going to. You know, especially government APTs. Are you surprised that governments are trying to hack into our computers and our networks and influence our...
No. Not surprised.
Yeah, you know what?
Why should I be?
You know what? Anyone who works in computers isn't. No one is. No one is freaking surprised.
Yeah.
If you're surprised, it means you don't work in computers. You just outed yourself as not a technocrat. Just a warning for you folks. You're like, I can't believe that Iran is trying to... I can't believe that Russia is... Yeah, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have any time management stuff that you do that has made your life easier?
I'm really bad with time management.
Okay, next question.
I mean, like when sometimes if I'm working on a project that I'll make a list of like different goals. Like I need this solution, solve this solution.
Do you look down and look at a project and say, okay, I'm going to work on this, and then you look up and the sun's down, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, that's happened.
Give me 5. That's all right. Yeah, I mean, you know what? There's nothing you can do. All you can do is stop working on that and work on something else. Because that's just sometimes how it goes. You don't know how long it's going to take. And you can guess, but you can be wrong. You just have to constantly reevaluate it and go back in there and go, okay, this is wrong. We thought it was going to be this. Here's why we thought it was this. Here's where we went wrong. Let's try to get it right next time. All right, cool. So what do you think about 3D printed guns?
They're unavoidable, so no point trying to ban it. Can't stop it.
I can't even argue with you on any of this stuff. How am I supposed to have a discussion here? Yeah, so,
I mean, I don't think it's a great thing, but I think it's just a fact. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
There's no way to stop it. It just is.
So what are going to be the consequences of people trying to stop it, even though it can't be stopped?
Similar to the consequence of people trying to stop you from photocopying a dollar bill, even though there's other ways to do it.
It's going to be an arms race.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, I think it's even worse than that. So I think it's like at least the photocopy.
Well, how is it going to functionally work? I mean, okay, maybe they can block one specific CAD design, so someone designs a new gun, or maybe you print out a specific part. It's going to have false positive. Like, oh, this is slightly L-shaped. You can't print that. I mean. How would you do it?
Yeah.
There's no real way to pull it off.
How dare you? Anyway.
Unless you literally keep a database of all known CAD profiles. So they can just write your own. So this is make your own gun.
So to me, I think this will have absolutely goose egg effect on the United States because there's so many freaking guns here already.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, I'm okay with that. I'm open to debate if somebody wants to come on the show and debate me on that, but I don't really think.
Also, 3D printed guns are only good for like 1 or 2 shots.
Up until this point, this is where we've been, and well, no, that's not true at all anymore. No, actually, they've come a long way. So there's at least 30 to 40 CAD designs out there that I know of. I had not downloaded them and tried them because we're in New York and it's New Yorkistan, and I don't want to go to Rikers for several years for looking at something. But I'm sure they'll find a way. Don't even ask me to try it. I'm not doing it. But there's other credible sources out there that have confirmed that these are indeed working plans. They're talking about there's lower receivers for pretty much every kind of gun now on multiple kinds of printers. So it doesn't. Some of them are plastic. Some of them are freaking nylon printers that can print lower receivers on guns and print working components. They don't last forever, but they can last for anywhere from 30 to thousands of shots, depending on which gun it is. So they're not one-shot deals anymore.
I mean, to last
that
multiple
original
shots,
gun,
I assume it has a metal sleeve in it or something.
Oh yeah, there's metal components, but I mean the thing is like whatever piece they ban, they can ban even if they ban the whole gun at this point, all the pieces are there.
Yeah.
You can just print. It'll be inferior, but it still will. If you're up to no good and you want to kill innocent people, it's not.
I mean, the only way they can pull it off is to program into the printers to not print certain previously known CAD designs, but then you can just get another CAD design or make your own.
Well, then it just becomes an antivirus race.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I just don't see how this could... so that's the one aspect of it, so you can block it at the printer, but also you can't stop the printer from printing another printer, right? So you can print the pieces for another printer. Then you have to block all the 3D printer from printing 3D printer parts.
Well, it's not
thousands of 3D printers.
It's not the printer itself, it would be the software.
Right. Well, I'm saying the software would have to do that too, because otherwise you could build a 3D printer and then it would be able to print.
Not only that, there'll always be open source printing software.
Right, so you'd have to ban all open source.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker that most people don't realize.
I mean, most 3D printers are all open source anyway, aren't they?
You can't stop it at the internet, flowing through the actual internet, because it's steganography. You can hide it in other things.
Yeah.
There's no way. You can hide it in pictures, you can hide it in music, you can hide it in movies, you can hide it in, video games.
Maybe they could ban any vaguely strong nylon. Just ban plastic.
I mean, never mind that they're sintering titanium. They actually made an Iron Man. So this was just on the video for this. Adam Savage built a working flying Iron Man suit out of titanium with a 3D printer. It's actually bulletproof in places.
It was printed in titanium, or he made a cast in
so
printer,
he worked with it's state of the art. This is not something you're going to be printing guns with, because it's like a gazillion-dollar printer. But they use titanium powder and a laser to print any 3D, and they contacted and said, hey, if you want to use this, let us know. We want to do something cool with it. They said, okay, let's build an Iron Man suit. So they built an Iron Man suit, and then they found a guy who has a working jetpack, who has jets on the arms and a jet on the back, and they put it all together, and they made a flying Iron Man suit that's bulletproof. All right, it's over, people. I mean, it's going to be flying Iron Man suits flying around New York City pretty soon, because that's
the cost, though.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. Costs, they tend to trail off asymptotically, right? So if it's $10,000 now, it might be $1,000 later, and $100, and it's just gonna. I mean, carbon fiber was just the one printer when Defense Distributed had to bribe the community to get the one.
Yeah.
And now they're all over the place.
I mean, the only way to effectively stop it is to ban any strong printing materials.
You basically you have to suicide on the Industrial Revolution of 3D printing. Basically.
Yeah, basically.
You have to kill your country.
You can only use this low melting point plastic that can't hold anything.
All right, I'm glad you were here and we could rant on this so people could hear it, so they could just realize how stupid this is and just give up. So the thing that's interesting like I said, about the United States, it's over. The gun rights debate is over. It doesn't matter whether people think you should have gun rights or not. You're not going to be able to stop people from having guns, except maybe in highly urban areas ever again. I really think that. But the thing that's interesting is in the rest of the world, where guns are highly illegal and already more or less banned and very restricted, they have this stuff too. Are they going to shut down their internet to try to stop people from printing 3D guns?
Ban 3D
are you going to start seeing armed gangs walking around France? And the police won't have weapons; they have to call in weapons. So what are they going to do against them? I mean, this could turn into something really crazy globally. Not here, because we're already armed. But this next 5 years, real. Ariel and I had a bet about this. We talked about this. So she thinks it's going to be 10 years. And then she changed it to 5. I think 2 years we're going to start seeing this. We're going to start seeing revolutionary factions.
3D printed gun violence?
With 3D printed gun. Meaning dead people in revolutionary actions from 3D printed gun variants overseas, not here.
Right.
So, any bets or?
That's hard because I've never really traveled overseas too much, so it's hard for me to gauge what it's like.
Yeah. It's tough too because I was telling you about some of the, you didn't even hear about the latest designs. How would you know, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think 2. I think we're going to see it in 2. So I think probably after this next election cycle's over in this country, you're going to see.
I'll be different and say 4.
I'll probably be a Western country too. I think it's going to be money. They're going to have to be able to afford 3D printers, and they're going to be have an engineering kind of subpopulace enough that there's a rebellious component of it. And
I think before that, you're going to see it in the news that someone was arrested in some country for printing one.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't seen it yet. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're keeping it quiet because they're afraid of the panic, the pandemonium. So how did you get into computers? Usually I open with this, but I just wanted to talk. You have so many. There's so many great wheelhouses that we could talk about. So.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was always in computers since I was young, and I don't know, when I was like 7 or 8, my mom put me in this programming class because she saw how interested I was, and they taught QBasic.
Okay.
Like in DOS.
I think most people here on the show have learned BASIC because it was free.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's free and it's accessible. Just think about how crazy that is now with GCC and basically every language being available for free on Linux. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, so I don't know. When I was younger, I learned QBasic, and I never did anything. I was a kid at the time.
Were you a DOS kid or were you a Windows kid from the start?
It was DOS with Windows 3.1.
Okay, so you were a DOS. Yes, all right. I think there's something about the DOS and 3.1 combo that really sings to people on Linux. And
yeah, because it's all the text file editing.
Right. It's just the same kind of model, right?
The INIs and the sys files. You got to edit all that.
Yep.
autoexec.bat.
Yep, I remember autoexec.bat.
Yeah, if you don't do that right, you don't have a sound card.
Right. You don't do yeah, if you don't do it right, you don't have a prompt.
Yeah.
They had to choose which driver you were going to load. I don't have enough memory for all these drivers. I need the sound card this time. I need the modem that time. And
the CD drive.
Yeah, CD drive this time. And it was kind of cool. I remember all that. Cool. So that was very short.
There's more.
Go ahead. Well, you have a little time. We're okay. He hasn't given us actually, we got 10 minutes, so
all right.
You got 5 minutes.
So the way I got into Linux specifically was, believe it or not, Minecraft.
All right, let's go, Minecraft. What version of Minecraft did you get into?
1.2 beta.
Oh, okay.
Oh, early days.
Yeah, so we got into Minecraft at roughly the same time. I was a little after you.
So this was like 2010, 2011?
Oh, I think I was before you even. No, was I? Yeah, I think I was before you.
Actually, it's hard to remember now. Might have been 2009, I don't know.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But it was beta.
Very early in I told my kids about it, and they told their friends about it.
So I bought it a month after they released the Nether.
Wow. Okay, yeah, you were ahead of me.
Okay.
Yeah, they had the Nether for the whole time I was there. So.
Okay.
But not much else. That was a fairly recent development when I got into it.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened to Linux?
I wanted to play a multiplayer server, and the other people like.
You wanted to run a server, and that's what got you into Linux? That's so awesome! What a great story! Isn't it ironic that Microsoft owns them now?
So I was already familiar with Linux at that point because I used a Knoppix disk to fix other computers, but as my main OS, I was mainly using Windows at that point.
Right. So you just booted it and clicked on the thing.
I used Windows to do. I used Linux to do repairs. I would use Linux to recover data, do partitioning a disk, that type of stuff, like gparted.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. That's a little advanced for a first step. Pretty cool. Okay. Nice. So Knoppix was really your first distro, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was your first permanently installed distro?
I put OpenSUSE on my computer.
OpenSUSE, huh? All your instructions in German?
I didn't stay on it long.
Right, okay, yeah.
I was on it for probably 6 months.
So and
it was a dual boot environment. I barely ever booted into it.
There is some regionality to Linux distros because there's so many. There was so there's Japanese and European and Chinese and Russian, and there's a focus on different regions. Red Hat's very focused in the business world. world in the United States. Ubuntu tends to be more focused on the home user and the science market, although they do some business too, and Red Hat does some science, and there's some crossover.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the reason why I picked it was because at the time I was a Windows for everything, and I heard that YAST was very much like the control panel.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, so I just installed it. And
I've done stuff with YAST.
I thought YAST was interesting, but I didn't like it so much as a whole.
I did a SUSE fax server. I did a Hylafax server.
So basically, I had my computer set to dual boot at the time, and I was mainly in Windows. And at the time, I had SUSE as a dual boot, and this is when I started playing Minecraft. So then I realized that I wanted to have my own multiplayer server. So then I tried running on Windows. It was dog slow because this computer was pretty slow itself.
We could talk about Minecraft for 45 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, you guys ready to dig in and have a long night?
No, I'll wrap this up.
Look at his face like, are you kidding me, man?
I'll wrap this up quick.
Through the cracks between the monitors. That's the only thing I'm giving you.
I got one hairy eyeball. That's it.
I'll give you an eyebrow raise too.
I'll wrap this up quick.
No.
So basically, I wanted to be able to play it. I saw it was dog slow on Windows, so I rebooted into the OpenSUSE, and I ran it there in the little Java thing. And it was playable, and I was able to actually have the server on my thing and actually play it on the same box without any frame rate loss. I was like, okay, this is great.
Yep.
So from there, I was like, but I'm not using OpenSUSE. I'm done with this. So I reinstalled. I forgot what I installed, but
So Red Hat, was it Fedora, was it Ubuntu, was it Debian or Red Hat
it was
based?
Arch.
Arch.
I went straight to Arch
Nice.
because I wanted to learn by fire.
You're a crazy person.
Yes.
No, that's how you do it.
Because I figured if I want to learn this, I'm going to have to just throw myself into the deep end.
Yep, just light yourself on fire and jump off the cliff and see what happens. Yeah.
I think it took me 3 days to get it
Weird how that
installed.
works in software sometimes. Right? I'm okay.
Yeah, it took me 3 days to get Arch installed.
Wow.
Just following the wiki little by little.
I remember having a conversation with you about that. I'm like, dude, you cannot do this in the job. You have to learn package management. Because you're like, Arch has packages. I'm like, yeah, that's not the same. So, Arch doesn't have normal package management.
Yeah, it
like
does.
Gentoo. I thought it was like, oh, no.
It's binary.
It's binary. Okay, I thought it wasn't.
I actually do have Arch on my workstation at work.
Oh, you do? They let you use Arch?
They let you use whatever you want.
Is it RPM based or?
No, it's its own. Pac-Man.
Oh, it's its own patch. Okay, right.
Pac-Man. It's
Sorry.
stars.gz's. It's its own format.
Is it really package management?
Yes, it is. It's binary packages.
Okay, so I'm talking out of my rear
It's not
end. then.
compiled from scratch, no.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was because it was. You know what? I'm an idiot. So I saw the tar GZs and I'm like, oh, it must be like Gentoo and it's compiling from source.
So Arch has the option to install a porch tree similar to FreeBSD, and then you can start going compile crazy, but I've never really used it.
Yeah, I've seen systems that do that are completely unmanageable.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So just because you just don't know what the person did.
Yeah.
Most of it's there. I realize there's ways to extract it, but there's a time component of that, especially if you're running tens or hundreds or thousands of servers. Forget it.
But long story short, once I had the server running, the micro server, people were playing on it all the time, so I couldn't reboot back into Windows anymore.
So now I had to learn how to.
So now I had to learn how to do everything on Linux just to be able to use my computer.
Did you know about VMs back then, or?
Yes, I did, but the computer was nowhere near fast enough. This was a dog slow computer.
Nice.
It was a small miracle that I was able to run a server and the Minecraft client at the same time.
That's really hardcore, man. That's a hardcore way to get started in it. It's funny. My kids were playing on Minecraft. I set up a Minecraft server at home, and my kids were doing all this crazy stuff with all these mods, and they just had no idea that was weird. And their friends would come over and they'd be like, "What is all this?" And they just, because they're used to doing it, but they weren't used to doing it on a server they had any kind of control over it. Yeah. They just go online and go to random servers. Did you let random strangers onto the server, or was
yes, I didn't at first, but then I opened it up.
And you were able to secure it?
I had some airtight stuff going on. So I
You
had.
have a too many chickens rule?
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, well, if you
If you spawn too many chickens, it floods.
You spawn too many
so
mobs?
spawning was limited. And
Okay, good. Yeah.
So first of all, when I first started playing, spawning wasn't even a thing you could do yet.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I had this plugin called, oh god, I don't even remember.
Well, chickens were special because you could build a chicken
Yeah, they
chicken
breed-
farm,
they
a
breed
chicken
more
breeding
chicken.
farm
Yeah,
that
I
would
know.
fully automate, and just keep cranking out chickens.
That wasn't something that could be done at that time.
Okay, cool. Okay.
The dropper wasn't in the game yet.
The dropper was in the game. That's the key. Yeah. Yes,
right.
I've built those. I've built those and gotten my fairly fast machine to go, no more chickens. Sorry, continue.
So basically, it was this plugin. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a plugin that connected to a MySQL database and kept a log of every event that every player does, like every item placed, every item touching a chest, every fire spread, every water spread, every
not any
everything.
movement.
So I could literally say, ban this player and undo everything he ever did on my server, and all of a sudden it's like he never touched it. All his blocks revert, all his stuff disappears, any fire he placed goes away, any animals he spawns.
Or log block, one of those.
Log block sounds familiar. I think it was log block.
Okay.
And there's also ultra logger, which is a big one.
Okay, interesting.
Log block sounds really familiar. Yeah, it was definitely log block because all the commands were /lb.
Those made
I just,
bucket plugins. That's the company.
because we never opened our stuff to the public, I just back stuff up and then restore it if it got bad.
Well, it was really cool. I even had this plugin that let me get to like the chat console from my phone, like from while I was at work.
Right.
So I would look at my thing, I get an alert like someone saying, "Hey, I need help." So I would just like undo everything this guy did. Poof, done. Just.
The thing that boggles my mind is I don't understand how you got poached into IT earlier than you did. You've been Are you in your? I don't want to out you.
Third year.
What?
Third year there.
How old are you though? I mean,
I'm 34.
you're 34. Okay, so it's not really that weird. I just don't understand how you didn't get an IT job in like your early 20s or your mid 20s.
I didn't start looking for one as early as I should have.
Yeah, you should have. You had the skill. I guess you just didn't see that. You're like, you know what you're doing? What my kids did. They're like, oh yeah, it's just normal to have a modded Minecraft server at home, But it's really not. It's really not at all. It's kind of weird actually. So yeah, that's really great, man. And then then you got into and your IT career has been taking off ever since. And do you ever want to go back to? Does it ever like keep you from working on your car or anything? Or are you super busy, or is it okay?
I'm less busy than when I worked full time at my old job.
Nice, excellent. So you have more control of your own time.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm sure you spend most of that researching like Minecraft stuff or cryptocurrency stuff. Is there stuff that you're looking into that craziness?
Not at the moment, but I have a couple ideas.
Okay.
I don't know. I was thinking about an idea for.
Well, don't tell me the thing that you're gonna
We'll discuss it.
later.
We'll discuss it later.
Discuss it
We'll
offline.
discuss it.
Yeah, I don't want you to sell you. I'll sell my own ideas out on this show just because I just constantly come up with new ideas. So what the hell am I going to do with them? I'm not going to program them all. But I don't want you to do that because that might be something valuable to you later. Okay, let's see. I think that's just about it. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about? There's a couple more things, but I'll skip them.
No, I think that's it.
I think we're almost out of time.
Everything, all the topics I wanted to hit.
Okay, so it's Laudadio.
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 Laudadio is actually the proper Italian way. So
Laudadio.
congratulations.
Actually, yeah, all right, yeah. So Rocco, Laudadio.
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. Laudadio. Great. Thanks so much for being on the Technocrat Live. I really appreciate it, and giving me a second chance to your name, which I went above and beyond with, apparently. Well, remember, I said I had to write it out phonetically so I could get it. So apparently, then I just automatically added the accent. So thanks so much for being on and sharing all your wealth of knowledge, and I hope you'll be back on again soon. Would you like to be in a panel sometime, or?
I'm not sure what your panel involves.
Okay,
What panel are we talking about?
Watch some panels and you check them out. It's just basically everybody coming and, it's the topics are a little tougher, but you're in a panel, so you can just hide
like
behind
group
the curtain.
discussion.
Yeah, a group discussion. So we have one coming next week, but I think it's booked. But I'm planning on doing one every month. By the way, speaking of which, next week, panel, so come and check it out. We've already got our guests lined up. It's going to be great. Thanks so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us.